I am the founder of Daogu Culture, also a co-founder of DramaBox, and one of the main founders. Currently, we have been doing short dramas since 2003, and this year we have developed into novels, comic dramas, AI comic dramas, and AI short dramas. We have basically transitioned from domestic to overseas, from screenwriting to production, filming, post-production, and distribution, as well as the conventional comic dramas of the past.
Because I have interviewed many people, and everyone asks one question, which is, what is a short drama? How do you define a short drama?
We have transitioned from the short video era, from the live streaming era, to the entertainment live streaming era, to the short video era, and now to the short drama era, which is a completely new form of participation. My understanding of short dramas is that they are also a type of film and television product. However, what distinguishes them from traditional long dramas and movies? First, the production cost is low. Second, the pace is fast. Third, they are presented in episodes lasting 1 to 3 minutes. Their dissemination model is fundamentally different. Why do I say this? Because our original horizontal screen-long dramas and movies have different dissemination models. Existing platforms like YouTube, etc., are more geared towards long dramas, where the popularity is boosted by system recommendations and promotional resources. The core disruptive model of short dramas refers to their promotional methods, which are different from the original. They focus more on high-impact moments, whether through advertising or distribution, allowing users who have never seen the short drama to engage with it through its highlights and clips. Therefore, I believe the biggest difference from traditional film and television lies in their distribution model. Secondly, they are shorter and more concise, compressing what would traditionally be a 2-hour drama into a shorter format. I believe their episodic model, where episodes follow one after another, fragments the user's time more. The user's perception and pain points are not as strong. For example, when they see the progress bar, they might think, I can watch this episode in 2 minutes, and just swipe past it. So I believe this is where they differ from traditional formats. The third difference is that the pace is faster, and the plot requires less thought. For instance, if we talk about a feel-good drama, this is our basic understanding of short dramas. Why are short dramas like this? Because they have fundamentally redefined the viewing habits of users, based on existing scenarios. Short dramas rely on their plots, which do not require deep thinking, emotional manipulation, or constant back-and-forth tension, allowing users to continue watching without realizing it, even in a mindless state.
Can you talk about our product, DramaGo?
The DramaGo product is ours. This product is our own enterprise, originally more focused on domestic short drama distribution, production, and social media management, which has progressed well. So when we reached a certain usage point, we considered the upper level, which is an app. What is the benefit of app? It can create long-term value for users through the subscription process. Currently, the overseas app faces significant challenges, so I have some suggestions for peers developing apps. While creating your app, consider incorporating your social media accounts into some overseas long-tail platforms for revenue. Because there are many English dramas overseas, mainly focused on CEOs and romantic themes. From the data on this app, we mainly do Chinese translated dramas and some dubbed dramas.
When DramaGo looks at data, what data do we refer to, and how will this data be used in future placements or selection of dramas?
Currently, we have a comprehensive range of translated dramas, so we may head in that direction. Through more exploration and various methods, we are trying to find ways to reduce our content costs, which is also a challenge we are facing. I believe that AI comics and novels, or so-called comic dramas, can find a huge development space in the entire anime market through this short drama distribution route. AI-driven plots can be executed more effectively.
You just mentioned dynamic comics. Do you think this is a future layout point, but is it in China or elsewhere? Or do you think there is also a large market overseas?
Firstly, in China, they have already heavily invested in it, and those who invest in them are all worth $1. They saw the opportunity, but it validated that the consumption of this thing is not good, exceeding expectations. I believe it can work overseas as well, because whether it is anime or short dramas, their core essence is still the internet. Therefore, I believe that whether it is anime dramas or short dramas, in the future, they may rely more on adapting a novel. The quality of this novel, and the quality of the adapted drama, will directly affect our outcomes, regardless of the impact on strategy and operations. Ultimately, it returns to the core. For example, with short dramas now, once I finish filming, it goes online, and once consumed, it actually has no subsequent value. It is not like The Matrix, where people might watch it repeatedly, and streaming can still generate income. So how can short dramas enhance their monetization paths? I believe there are 2 points. First, when our drama comes out, we must first attract readers, then move into advertising unlocks. The second is to find good partners in various countries and regions, bringing some conventional platforms over for regular monetization. Fourth, with so many countries and regions globally, your translations and dubbing will differ. Each country will need to redistribute, and old content will not be very valuable. If there are multiple ways to earn money, I believe the value of short dramas is the same as that of movies and TV dramas.
Regarding AI, you just showed us a lot. Can you elaborate a bit on the layout behind this?
Because it will become more mature, whether it is making AI comic dramas, or AI live-action dramas, or using AI for personal tasks, dubbing, translation, and AI integration. I believe AI is an essential human resource technology for the future, so it is already indispensable now. Therefore, I believe AI applications, such as assisting in script optimization, enhancing visual effects, whether in translation or dubbing, etc.
Is it possible that AI will replace many human jobs, leading to unemployment?
It is somewhat like the 1980s when many workers were laid off, but with a large influx of cheap labor. For example, we used to need 10 people to complete a task, but now 2 people can do it with AI. Do you mean that 8 people are still needed? No. The other 8 people need to learn this workflow together. Previously, 10 people could only complete a certain amount of work, but now 10 people can accomplish thousands of similar tasks. This helps improve efficiency and economic output, rather than replacing people. For instance, if you are a designer, and your original role was as an art designer, AI might replace you in that design process, and you need to learn how to use it. AI can help your business improve the efficiency of character design and output, rather than saying you need to learn because your foundation in art, your aesthetic sense, and your vision are still there. I believe AI will not lead to unemployment. The greatest value of AI lies in facilitating efficient work, and you need to accept this.
To summarize, you need to have an eye for selecting products. AI might generate 100 images, and you need to know which one is better, similar to that ability.
Yes, you just asked how individual creators can earn money. I believe what individual creators lack is first copyright, and second, the entire IP of the work. For example, if you are an individual creator wanting to create a novel comic drama, but you do not have the copyright to the novel, you need the platform to help you solve that. Secondly, you do not have particularly useful work. For instance, our AI technology can be shared with enterprises. Thirdly, as an individual creator, you must have a very good development bottleneck. Can you compete for their novel copyrights through these relatively mature AI products? Because their entire production process might allow you to learn the methods a few times, and then go back to produce content to sell to these platforms.
If you need to envision the future of short dramas, or vertical screen dramas, what do you think it should look like?
Until the next drive pushes you to write short dramas and comic dramas. Even overseas local dramas meet the needs of different types of people. Whether it is short dramas, AI dramas, comic dramas, local dramas, translated dramas, or dubbed dramas, they meet the needs of different users, different processes, different ideologies, and different understandings. They fulfill the diverse spiritual needs of the market. So I can only say that we are looking at content that fulfills users' spiritual needs.
Hi, my name is Jenny Rosen, Junior Development Executive at DramaBox, and I also am a vertical drama screenwriter and traditional writer. So yes, that's my role in the industry, and I've been working in verticals for nearly 2 years.
How do you see AI is gonna change or replace some verticals or scripts or production? How do you see AI in short dramas?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. I think AI, this idea that like you can I know everyone in the press was like, oh, verticals written by AI. It's like, no, these are written by people. And actually, when they try to write verticals with AI, they're horrific. It just can't, it like you'd be surprised. There is so much that goes into crafting a vertical drama. I know people think it's simple. It is anything but. It needs a lot of guidance. It needs it because these are emotional stories. It needs that human emotional touch, and it needs someone who understands the arc of it. So I think AI could be a tool to help streamline parts of the process to make it simpler. Maybe you could figure out how to help, like a writer could build it into their workflow. We're like, okay, well, I have to come up with I need to shorten my summary, or I need to do, you could find ways to integrate it to make parts of the process, maybe generating pitch decks, simpler, But at the end of the day, I think that there has to be it's never going to be fully in the near future because like, again, you could do AI scripts and if they don't perform, you're back to square one. So it's, trying to figure out, it's not as simple as like, once AI cracks the code, it will be able to produce scripts that work every single time. It won't. That's the reality. So I think in production, I've seen AI generated vertical dramas. It's very bizarre. I think one of the most important parts of vertical dramas for fans are those actors. That star power is bringing people to this space. The fandoms, there have been fan pages, like many actor friends of mine are like, there's people who have made fan pages of me and they're really connected to their fans and they're very dedicated to supporting and they follow the actors to different shows. They see them on different platforms, they'll watch them everywhere. So the human connection is critical for this vertical space. Like what has built the fandom are the faces that that bring these stories to life and bring these fantasies to life. So I think without that and having AI generated talent, it's not the same experience. It's something else, but it's not what fans come for, where you have an AI machine. It's not a human who you feel connected to. So I think because it's such an emotional exchange, there will be limitations in terms of how far AI can go in the near future. Who knows? But I think for what it is now and why it's successful, I think AI could be an assistant, but it cannot be the full suite.
Could you briefly introduce yourself and your role in short drama industry?
Hi, my name is Jen. I'm the founder of Vertical Drama Love, which is a combination of fan-created content, reviews, articles about the industry, advocating for better things in the industry. I also do media speaking, consulting, basically here to help the industry grow and generate more work for everyone. I have noticed that multiple apps are putting AI content out now. There is absolutely no interest in fans. And I think the misunderstanding the apps have is fans love the actors and actresses and their humanness and their interaction on social media. That's what they're connected with that. They worry about their jobs. So I asked this question in my survey, like about AI. They worried about the jobs. Also, all of us have had their jobs threatened by AI. So I had several people say, I've just been replaced by AI in my work, so I don't want to see other industries that. So there was a very, very strong vocal feeling of they don't want AI. The only bits where it was brought in were, I could see there's a value around maybe improving workflows or creating fantasy and that it would allow you to do dragons and scenery like that. But they want human actors. So I think that is absolutely crucial. Going forward. It also means it's really important the app because quite a lot of the apps will slightly AI the posters, which means that you don't recognize the actors and actresses. So I'm now thinking they're an AI show and avoiding them. And then I'm being told by, director and producer, oh no, that's got like real people in. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't have clicked on it because I'm trying not to click on anything that looks AI generated so that apps get the message if I'm not interested. Content wise, I think just, news stories. I think just anything original. I think people are very varied. There's all sorts of replies, all sorts of different genres, but essentially, news stories. I think there's more interest in either doesn't always have to be romance, but having, female story of like girl friends, groups of friends or groups of male friends and sort of doing more of that sort of friendship group story. I think there's interest in that. And the biggest one is just reducing the violence. The violence is far too much. They want the violence down.
I was surprised because right now AI motion comics, it's very popular. Like it's a hit in China. So money are pulling into that. And you actually see AI motion comics in the overseas apps already.
So I think that was what people were saying. I think people were like, if I want to watch that, I'll go to anime or comics. So I think it's keeping it separate. But if I'm here for vertical, I think the key thing that just keeps coming out to me in this survey is that people identify with the actors and actresses and that they're humans and that they're available on social media and that they see their lives. And then that's what people want, I think. So there is much more loyalty to an actor or actress that people love than there is to any sort of app. So a lot of people have said, if I have a favourite actor, I will watch as much of their work as I can, whatever app it's on. So I think that because there's so many apps now, that's kind of where the power shift has changed. There's not that sort of brand loyalty really to an app. It's to the actors and actresses. It's like, I will follow them. I mean, Noah Fernley got mentioned repeatedly. It's like, I will watch him wherever. So that's where people are how people are choosing what to watch.
Hi everyone, my name is Dana Protashak. I am founder of VertIGo and LA Vertical Drama Market. I'm a writer, producer, director, and founder of events in short drama space. I'm curious about AI and technology. How does it work in verticals in China right now? Because in US, they even passed a law that AI can't substitute actors because everyone is afraid that AI will take their jobs. But I'm curious about like what's in China there right now.
AI is used in many ways. One, they tried for those Chinese shows, they tested to change the faces of Chinese into foreign faces. The test is not good, because when they go to close up, it's kind of the expression still kind of weird. So it's not very good. They also do some background, like AI generated background in sci-fi and stuff, but not many are used. There is one trending right now. It's very hot this year. It's called AI motion comics. So a lot of investors, long streaming platforms and short drama vertical platforms are getting into this market. It's targeting a younger generation, like 20 years old, especially males. So there are some horror, sci-fi stories, those things, and it's easier and to make by using AI. There are three types. One is called full-scale AI motion graphics. That's just AI generation, the whole story. The second one is called narration. It's like an audiobook, but you have some images. So it's better than an audiobook because you can watch some moving images, and that's cheaper to make. The third one is called silly comics. So people read some funny comics, some silly stories, and that's cheap to make as well. So that's three type of story. They say that's the final piece of the whole short drama industry. We begin with the middle-aged men from lower tier cities, and then expand it to women in lower tier cities. And then right now they are targeting those women with higher education in the bigger cities with some very good quality short dramas, as I mentioned, slow pacing, good quality stuff. They were trying to grab the audience from streaming platforms. And then the final puzzle is the young people, so 20 years old young people.
The first AI is that you mentioned when they just change people's faces, like the ones they put instead, do they shoot them? Or it's just like they just grab somewhere? Like, do they shoot real actors for that?
Platforms, right? They got the final short drama in their stock. So they want to export into foreign markets. So they use AI to change their face.
Okay, so it's not actors that you are changing, for you're changing like the real face into AI.
Yeah, from Chinese actor's face into some kind of foreign actor's face. They tried that, but it's not very good.
Because I know that there was a debate that, okay, like we have a short drama that we made. Can we shoot another actor in a studio, just like one, like 2 or 3 hours? You just shoot close-ups with him, like different emotions, different reactions. And then, like with AI, you put what you just shot into your short drama. And it works much better, but it's very unethical. And again, like right now, California has passed the law that you can't use like AI to substitute actors.
Is it expensive to change faces?
Well, it's less expensive than to shoot the whole short drama
No, we don't do this. Maybe because shooting a real actor is not very expensive.
because of the new law that you can't do it. But also is it like no actor here would give a consent to use like his mimics and everything to substitute him. So it's more like legal and ethical issues than a technical one.
No, we don't use that.
We don't either, but it's possible to do it.
Name is Casey Esser, and I started acting in vertical dramas in spring of 2023. So pretty early on as far as the United States is concerned. And, since then, I've also started producing vertical dramas as well.
What's the difference between performing in a short drama and like long form series?
Well, admittedly, I had done a couple of short films and one play. So I didn't have a ton of experience on the other side, but to me, it's really just a difference of pacing. Performance-wise, I'm still coming in knowing my character's intention and what I want to bring, to that environment. Performance-wise, I'm differently. Sometimes the notes I'm given is to go, bigger. So that's, sometimes the difference with vertical is, they want people to be able to watch these potentially without audio. So you have to really be able to deliver certain expressions and reactions that are bigger. But to me, it's just a difference of pace and how fast we're moving.
How will you define it? And what's the essence of short drama?
To me, this is another fantastic medium of storytelling. It's not a replacement for movies or TV. It's simply another option for people, to enjoy stories that are aspirational, to enjoy stories that are about love. And, I think even in the short time that it's been in the United States, it's really, evolved and it will continue to, right now it's mainly, soap opera, right? But that will continue to be the case. But the genres will, I believe, continue to expand. And the essence really is like what I mentioned. These are aspirational love stories that people can believe in without any sort of other ulterior message. This is pure entertainment and escapism and a way for people to better deal with their own life.
Name is Jibok Park. I'm the founder and CEO of Code Crayon based in Korea. I operate Shortime, a global micro drama platform, and I also run Shortime Studio. That is a B2B SaaS platform that helps anyone build their own micro drama platform easily.
How would you define short dramas?
I think short dramas are one of the next mainstream content formats. They are optimized for mobile viewing, short attention spans, and fast emotional impact. They fit perfectly into the way people consume entertainment today.
What's their essence?
I personally see short dramas similar to casual games. The goal is simple, give users quick, fun, and emotional engagement in a very short time. If a viewer can feel excitement, laughter, or romance in a few minutes, that is the essence of short drama.
Hi, I'm Isabel Dreon, and I'm a screenwriter in vertical shorts or this vertical dramas.
How do you get involved in short drama?
So, in March of this year, so I'm a professional screenwriter. I write romance and holiday movies, and so I had 5 of my movies produced a couple of years ago. So a friend of mine, this company in Canada, were looking to, I guess, improve the quality of what they were doing, making it more female empowered. And so a friend of mine who directs for them introduced me, and that's how I got in.
How would you define short drama?
I would say like a little shot of espresso, if features are like a long, slow brewing coffee, short dramas are like espresso. Like it's fast, it's intense, and it's just like very high emotions, high stakes, everything high, and very exciting. I mean, it's a very exciting genre. Maybe TV television is more like a latte, and like this is like shot. You enjoy it. It's a very instant satisfaction, and so that's how I would describe them, as an espresso shot.
What's the essence of short drama?
Well, the essence is high stakes. High stakes, high emotions. It's like a roller coaster, 2 minutes at a time, or 1 to 2 minutes at a time.
What do you see the main difference between verticals and web series and films?
Well, it's really, there's no slow burn, there's no setups. So it's almost like you have to go at the epicenter of the drama. If you have a television series or a feature, you have time to get to that point. With web series, I would say it's a little bit closer to the epicenter, but I think for vertical, it's like the bullseye. You have to hit the bullseye every single time, and you have to stay there, which is, very intense. And I think this is why I see a lot of writers struggle because we're so used to being told, you have to set up. Everything is about setups in television or feature, and here is not. It's like right and how to make people understand the story by hitting that bullseye. But we've been trained as writers to really, you have to set it up to hit that bullseye, but now you go right in. So it's very exciting as a writer to find ways to hit that bullseye without having to do exposition and having any setup. And that was the most mind-blowing thing for me when I saw them the first time, is like you hit the bullseye and you actually understand what's going on, which is, as writers, this is the opposite of everything we've ever been told.
My name is Celia Xavier, and my experience in the film business has been with traditional filmmaking and mostly documentaries. And it's only within the past 6 months have I even heard of the verticals. And it came about because I was looking for work as crew. I do UPM, production coordinator, producing, and that really dried up significantly. But what I did see were people posting that they needed actors and stuff. So after a long hiatus of not acting, I submitted to some of these and auditioned and would get booked. So I just thought, well, that's so from left field because that's nothing that was on my radar at all. And so that's how I got into the verticals.
My name is Jen Yorokis, and I work as a director in microdrama or vertical drama production. I work in Los Angeles, but I'm also fostering relationships for productions in Paris, France, and other parts of the European Union.
And how did you first get involved in short drama industry?
A friend of mine who is an actor and a producer, Casey Esser, he actually had hired me to be an intimacy choreographer on a couple of his dramas that he had been working on. And then a friend of mine who's a DP who had been introduced to vertical dramas had recommended me as a director to Net Shorts. And that's how I got introduced as a director into the vertical world.
And how will you define it? And what do you think its essence?
I'm pitching the idea of short dramas or verticals. What I usually reference for people is either the South American telenovela or the United States soap opera genre. I kind of think that what I'm experiencing with short dramas is that it really is become a place to resurrect this particular type of genre, which is a soap opera or a telenovela, which is romance. It's over the top. It's dialogue driven. And for me, the essence of it is just pure, unadulterated fun. I don't look to short dramas to bring me, really deep, complex storytelling or, mind-blowingly beautiful cinematic imagery. I really look at them as really fun, cheeky, if you know what that term means. It's like poking fun at itself in a way. Just fun, romantic interaction between over-the-top characters. That's how I look at microdramas.
I am Leanne Marie, and I'm a casting director here in the London, UK, but also cast, internationally, worldwide. And I have now been casting for vertical dramas, I think it's coming up to nearly 2 years. It's definitely over like a year and a half or nearly 2 years. So I did my first vertical drama casting, yeah, with Onset Octopus Production, who brought me on as a casting director. So I was the first UK casting director to actually get involved in casting for vertical dramas over here. So it's been a really interesting journey for me.
How did you first get involved into casting your first vertical?
Yeah, so because I cast here in the UK, I cast for commercials, so TV commercials, films. I've cast for theatre and other forms of media. I'd worked on a film with a producer, which is Ben Pengilly from Onset Octopus, we'd worked very well together on a feature film, and he was casting for the first vertical drama here, and had reached out to me to ask if I would come on board to cast. And I think at first I kind of got involved and helped cast the leads, which was in the Mafia Lovers kind of vertical drama. And I think at first, when I first got into it and I got the script, I was a bit not even confused, but I was a bit like, oh, what is this? Like this script, I had to read it quite a few times to kind of really understand like the quick pace, the levels of intimacy in the script, the BL vibes. And I was like, okay, and this is a lot. And I think as a casting director, any kind of script or anything we have to take the time to kind of go through it, read it, understand the characters. So I think my first vertical drama, I think when I cast, I was really trying to understand what does the client want, because that's as a casting director, that's kind of what we're here for. We're that kind of middle person between the production agency, actors, and to get the right person for the right roles. So it took quite a lot of work, but then I just got really intrigued into what this format was, and then Mafia Lovers did so well, and then I began to just be involved more and cast more back to back.
What are some common script issues? Because you will receive many scripts. Some common issues that you often need to fix or adjust during production or before the production.
Localization is a big issue. The scripts are oftentimes not written by someone in the country that the drama is going to be streaming for. So we look at how each character speaks, what their language is, the types of phrases that they will use, the colloquialisms that they will use, and we'll try to maintain the structure, because the companies always want us to maintain a certain structure. But within that structure, I'll try to individualize each character's voice based on the city that they're supposed to be living in, or based on their class level, or based on, something very specific in their character. So that's really one of the biggest that we face, is finding ways to hold the structure the way the company wants the structure, but to find individual voices for the characters that are unique and speak to where they are living and what they are doing in their lives. And then the other big issue that we're starting to see is that there is in microdrama a type of misogyny that's really playing out, that maybe is getting pushed too far right now. I think there's a lot of people who are writing about microdramas right now that are pointing that out, that maybe we look at other storylines other than, for example, there's one storyline that currently circulated where a woman was attacked in a way that the vertical drama community kind of pointed out was maybe going too far with the misogyny, and maybe we need to pull back from that a little bit, still enjoy the fun of the heteronormative romance, but maybe not get into hurting women unnecessarily. So that's been a recent issue that I've noticed that has come up that I think they're discussing and trying to find a way to fix.
More like a shock value. They were just saying.
Yeah, it is. It's really like a shock value, and it's really necessary to the story. You could write something a little bit more interesting that wasn't so hurtful to the female gender.
Have you received any script from local writers, like English writers, original script? Any issue that need to be fixed or improvement?
Well, I think with local writers, and I've written some scripts myself, and one of the challenges that we face as American writers, I can't speak to South American writers or, I can speak to French writers and some of the European writers as well, is that we tend to want the stories to be more complex and the dialogue to be less, and this is a very American term, on the nose, which means when you write a line and the character doesn't have any subtext behind it, usually we refer to that as something that's being really on the nose. It's just really obvious. And in American writing, and I think in a lot of European writing, we like to have a lot of subtext, so the character doesn't always say exactly what they mean, and you discover what they mean later on in the story. So I think Western writers need to remember that because you're viewing the vertical in 2 to 4 minute increments, sometimes you do need to be on the nose because somebody might have missed an episode. Also, the writing needs to be a little bit repetitive in case, again, somebody missed a bunch of episodes and they're hopping in on the middle for some reason. They need to know where they are in the story. So that's something that I feel the scripts that I'm getting from the Asian American community and the Asian businesses, they're really good at kind of copying that soap opera dialogue rhythm where it is a little bit repetitive because you're creating stories for people, for audiences that aren't necessarily watching it in chronological order or watching the whole thing. Maybe they're just watching a piece of it. So they need to be kind of reminded of where they are in the story process. So I think for me, to sum that up, sorry, that was a very long-winded answer. Western writers need to lean into the style of the repetition a little bit and the style of it being a little bit obvious in the text. And maybe some of the writing that I'm seeing from the Asian American the Asian companies, maybe they could be just a little more complex in the dialogue. Maybe there's something in the middle where each culture could learn from each other and maybe make it just a little bit more interesting rather than so repetitive, which is a lot of what the microdrama is right now, is very, very repetitive.
You're writing your own script. So for someone who is from maybe film or TV background, or maybe write novels, who want to write short dramas, verticals, what's your suggestion to them?
Don't take it too seriously. Have fun. Like, it's a fun genre. Like, last night I was thinking about our interview and our conversation, and I was thinking, how would I describe it? And I would describe it like, like cheap candy. Like, we know when you buy a little bag of cheap candy, that it's going to be a little too sweet. It's not going to necessarily be the healthiest thing that you're going to buy, but you're going to really enjoy it, right? Like we all sometimes crave that little bit of junk food, and we love it for exactly what it is. We're not trying to turn junk food into broccoli, and I think for traditional writers, have fun with a genre, embrace the structure, because the structure is repetitive for a very good reason. It's part of what helps it sell with the algorithms. And then just make it the best you can within that structure. And remember who your audience is. Your audience is not sitting down to watch, a Steven Spielberg movie. They're sitting down to watch something that's just fun and can help them experience a little bit of escapism.
When you mention about structure, how can a writer know about structure?
I think you have to read scripts. You have to ask your friends who've worked on microdramas, can I please read one of your scripts so that I can see how they pace the script to fit into that tiny, tiny episode. That took me a while to learn how to write. Like, I remember my first microdrama that I wrote, it was very filmic. And I had to go back and just think, okay, I need to have every episode break happen every couple of pages. And that is a certain skill. And it takes time. You have to practice it. And to maintain the level of drama that you need to maintain, in order to keep your audience interested. I think it's a great exercise. It kind of reminds me of like when film directors like were learning how to, this was a long time ago, when film directors, were shooting commercials as kind of their practice to learn how to make feature films. When you shoot a commercial, you have 30 to 45 seconds to tell a story, right? That's a style skill. And I think microdramas are the same thing. You have to really read the scripts and practice writing in this particular rhythm and this particular scene break structure.
Or maybe they watch the full episode, full
You
series.
could watch, yeah, I think you should watch it as well. I did when I first offered the opportunity to direct a microdrama. That was the first thing I did, was immediately started watching them because I knew what they were because I had choreographed a lot of sex scenes for them, but I hadn't really taken a deep dive into what 110 pages of one series feels like to watch it all the way through. And that is a completely different experience, than just hopping in for a few days to, help the actors deal with the intimacy. Very different experience. So definitely watch them.
Actually, when me and my writer, editor-in-chief, we kind of do the breakdown. So we write down the first episode, what's in the first episode, write down second, and then like 65 episodes, and we know the whole structure. It's like a practice.
Yeah, it is. It's being in high school when you first learn how to write an essay, they have you write down a bullet point list of what's the arc of your essay, right? I never thought I would say this, but yeah, I think we all did that in school where you learned how to write a few pages and you did that bullet breakdown and you said, I start here and then I go here. It's the same thing. My high school teachers will be very proud if they watch this interview.
What's the core element you always make sure bring out from script to screen?
For me, the core element is really, why are these characters here? Why are they here? Because I think if you can really dial in on the why, it gives the characters a reason to come back for each episode, and it gives your audience a reason to want to see what they're going to do next based on their why. As a character, am I here? Why do I keep coming back to this story? I remember when I was younger and I was at Cal Arts, and I was an acting student at Cal Arts, and one of my teachers said, if you don't have a why for why a character is there, then there's no reason for you to be on stage. You might as well just walk off stage. You always have to have a why. Why is character staying in the room and dealing with what they're dealing with right now?
Oh, I saw. You said it's like a candy, short drama, vertical like a candy. So the ending has to be always sweet, or as a candy, is any other feelings like sorrow or bitter?
Well, yeah, ultimately your characters go through all of the roller coaster of emotions. That's why they're so fun. Like we see the character wants something, has a desire, and they close to getting it, but then they don't get it. Something interacts, something interrupts them, and something hurts them. But then we see them have the opportunity to achieve that goal again, but then something bad happens. And I think that's why, these stories are so fun to watch, because it's like on a roller coaster. You go up and you go down, you go up and you go down. And then by the end, it's such a wonderful relief when you get to the end and the character finally gets what they want.
What's the process of selecting the stories, ideas? Do you rely on data, trends, or creative instincts from your team?
We combine all things. We look at audience data and trends from our platform, but we also trust the instincts of writers and directors. Sometimes one unique idea from a creators become our next big hit. So data guides us, but creativity leads the way.
You write the first vertical script. How do you choose your topic, and where do you find the inspiration?
Yes, this one was based on someone I dated. I have a lot of dating nightmare stories. So this was actually one of them. And it turns out that it's not uncommon that people do meet somebody that maybe doesn't speak fluent English, and so we were using Google Translate on the phone to communicate. And so that was sort of the inception, the seed for this story.
So it's like a comedy story?
No, no, no. It turns out that I see him as a fraud and that he's playing all these people. But what I have for the entire series is that he does have a hidden agenda as well, and so does my character, and so does my daughter. So we're just getting a taste of these people and where we think it's going, but of course there will be multiple twists along the way.
How do you design characters?
Usually it's based on people I know and real life situations. I have a saying that true life is way stranger than fiction could ever be. I know so many people who have just wild stories and lives that so my stuff is always grounded in what I call in reality. There's something there that is definitely people can relate to. In other words, like finding out that somebody you're dating is married. That's something I think maybe a lot of people can relate to.
How do you capture the audience attention in just 10 seconds or 5 seconds? And when you do the editing, is there anything you regret or you want to reshoot?
Right. I wish I would have shot a lot more footage, and a lot more of the people, of the actors when they were not acting. So in other words, when they're sitting there waiting for the cameras to run or for people to call action, the actors are usually sitting there and they have different expressions. And I wish I would have captured a lot more of that and just a lot more footage. How do you capture the audience's attention? It has to be a strong emotional hook or something. So we used she's pregnant, she's sick, he's married, he's cheating, those type of strong situations.
Why do you want to shoot this when people are sitting, actors are sitting relaxed? Why do you need those footages?
Because sometimes as a matter of fact, I did use in the very first scene, the very first episode, I did use the lead girl. She was sitting there waiting for the cameras to roll, and she's just sitting there, and it looks like she's thinking. And so we used it in the editing to be like she's waiting for her first date, and the dialogue that's going through her mind is the text that I put there. So it was like, wow, it was golden footage that I didn't even know I had, right? And it just really saved, to me, it saved that scene because it gave a little bit of a prologue to the scene that I wouldn't have had normally.
It's monologue.
Just a little bit of question that she had, he doesn't speak English, so how's this going to work? Something like that. And it gives the audience a little taste of what's going on in the story before the story evolves. There was another time where I had the male actor, he was sitting there and he broke out into this laughter, but it for some reason with the lighting and everything, it looked like a very evil laugh. It just did. So I was able to use that to show that maybe like he's an evil guy or something.
How do you balance artistic creativity with commercial appeal in your content layout?
We always begin with emotion and human truth. If the story feels honest and heartfelt, users will connect with it. When viewers love the story, the commercial results naturally follow. For us, emotional impact is the bridge between art and business. So we have commerce functions in our app.
How do you design hook when you write it?
I'm also thinking in terms of myself as an audience member, what would hook me or what would, be this. And I think just having acted in so many and seen so many, that part felt easy to be like, okay, how do I want to break these episodes up? And what would be an appropriate look to end on or event to happen? That's where the structure came in a little bit easier because I could end something and then be like, okay, now we're on to episode 2, episode 3.
How do you design which part is the end of the episode?
That felt a little bit more natural. If I felt like there was a big reveal or even just a reaction, that to me set up the cliffhanger part I find to be pretty easy. If anything, it's more just keeping it within a certain length. Because with verticals, it's all about pacing. And sometimes, if it's your idea, you want a lot of exposition. You want to explain this, explain that. But with vertical, you just got to go. And so that was, maybe the biggest challenge was how do I really keep this moving and not get fluff and get it slowed down and have things that aren't necessary, absolutely necessary, the story. Because the script that I wrote and that we shot was 60 pages. So that's pretty short to tell a full action story.
Sometimes you don't need to explain everything. What do you mean by that when you write a story?
Yeah, in terms of like the character backgrounds, like for example, I'm an ex-Secret Service agent in this story. I'm going with my daughter to the Philippines to protect a pop singer. It says that I'm basically retired to spend more time with my daughter. That's it. We don't need my whole history. We don't need any flashbacks to anything like that. We don't need to know why the Philippines, but it's just we're in the story. We don't need any additional scenes with me and the daughter outside of what moves the story forward. And we don't need the pop singer's backstory on anything else. We can actually just tell that through how she acts, and we can let the audience have their own imagination on what that could look like. So yeah, there's just some things, particularly in vertical dramas, where you don't have to know everything. You don't have to. You know the essentials, and then let's go.
Maybe in films, if it's shooting a full-length film, it's probably gonna explain, right?
It'll probably explain, it'll probably have a lot of like extra shots that, are great, for the story and tell the story in a deeper way. But ultimately, maybe aren't necessary for actually moving the story forward.
How do you catch the audience attention in just 5 seconds?
Yeah, I think that's where the lack of full exposition comes into play. Like in this story, my daughter, gets kidnapped by episode 3. So basically 3 minutes in, we have our first, big thing. And, that's that's very fast. Typically in a feature film, it would be at least 10 minutes in, and that would still be kind of fast. So in a vertical, everything is like cut it by a third or 2/3. And, but I'm cognizant of, giving a little bit of air, but just enough to make the story make sense, but not over explain.
How do you design hooks and what makes a good hook?
Hooks and cliffhangers. This is why I love to write verticals so much, because in the thriller world, which I write thrillers, is all about twists. So cliffhangers are a question that is unanswered, and maybe it will be answered in the next one, but maybe not. So, a question that will make you go like, oh, what's the answer to that question? An emotion that will open a door to another world, or a curveball, meaning like you're throwing something that could take the story in a like completely different direction. So that's usually how if the hook is either one of those or all three, then it's a great hook.
What do you mean by emotion? I didn't get that part.
Well, an emotion is like you'll have something and you'll have a reaction, and it'll be like, like if you can add dum 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 after your, that reaction, then that's usually a really good space to like a look, like something will happen and you'll have the reaction or the emotion, the reaction on that moment also is you know, a lingering emotion is also a really good hook. You know, a look, you know, a gasp, you know, something like that. You can stay on that character a close up where you'll be like, you know.
How do you create emotional resonance with the audience?
Well, by creating things that are based on authenticity. You know, like, you know, I know that those stories are bigger, but if you base your things on true human emotions, on authenticity, on creating the layer underneath, people will resonate. And I find that often, I mean, the verticals is opening a world of excitement that probably people don't have in their own lives. You know, for the romance, the steamy, the, you know, things that people would, you know, it just, you know, create an emotional reaction. And I find that basing it on connection and truth, basing it on truth is usually how I personally make the audience react. And a lot of heart or a lot of conflicts. Conflicts is key in these, so that's usually how you get people to feel. So conflicts and heart.
I'm not sure you take shock value into the consideration when you write scripts.
Shocking value is you know, the cherry on top of you know, like the more shocking the better. And how far can you go? You know, and it's always like if you can get the audience to go, you know, that's the thing, right? So for the blind bride, you know, it's like, is she not blind? And it's surprising the audience and giving them, you know, being, you know, like the audience now are very smart. So they have an idea where things are going. My fun is always to make them think that we're going in one direction and then suddenly like spin it, surprise them. And when if you manage to surprise the audience, then that's where you know, like then you it's because they don't get surprise often. A lot of times it's just the same thing over, you know, they're used to having the same thing. But if you can surprise them, then you really get the shock value and also you hook them for, you know, for the whole show. Absolutely.
In ad buying logic, they will add out some creative ads from the short drama. How do you balance shock value and the creativity?
I'm not especially fond of the slaps. I know that the clients often love the slap, you know, and I try to make them in a, you know, feel organic. You know, for me as a writer, I try to write the most compelling, intense stories that I can. And then, of course, what part are they going to use for ads and stuff? That's the client's job. If I, you know, if I do my job right, there will be a lot of these moments, you know, and they usually have, but I don't think about advertising. I think about, you know, telling the most compelling story that will grab the audience. And, you know, and that's why I have been so successful is that I'm always able to add a lot of heart and people feel when they read my writing. Like if I write a horror, people feel scared or tense and keeping people on alert. That's what I do. That's my strength. And so that's all I do. I care. If I'm in the story and I connect with the character, you know, my mind just comes up with these things and I don't have to think about ads. I know that they will have plenty of these moments to use.
How do you create hooks?
That's a good question. You have to find out what it is, the characters, right? What is their flaws? And then you want to throw that character into a situation that they're not comfortable with. And then when they're pushed up against that situation is hopefully where that hook will come in. And then the audience is like, well, what is she going to do? We know that she's, I don't know, got ADHD or something like that. And we know she's not going to do well in this type of situation, or she's afraid of flying and now she has to fly. Is she going to freak out or whatever? So It's knowing their flaws and then putting them in a situation where you know that they're not going to do well.
What do you see the big difference between traditional film and TV and verticals?
Well, films are slow burns, right? To get to know the character. TV has those arcs. They set up a problem and then they solve the problem in the end of the TV show. Whereas verticals are, well, I call them emotional bombs, right? They're these immediate situations that cause an emotional reaction from the audience. And it's done through the actors' faces, their close-ups, their looks, their facial expressions, things like that. So it's just a more immediate emotional impact that it has.
Mentioning about the emotional impact, how do you create emotional resonance with the audience?
Like I said, I think it has to be based in reality of something, right? Where the people can relate to it. It has to be that human connection that of being betrayed, of being lied to, of I'm just talking about this one script only, of that international emotion that people can still relate to over language, right? It has to translate over all these different languages because I'm sure the 70,000 views we got are not just US, they have to be international as well.
And how do you control pacing of a vertical from directing or post-production perspective?
I think the pacing has to do with looking at those highs and lows and figuring out, emotionally, how do you uphill fast at this moment, or are you climbing slow? And are you going downhill slow, or are you going downhill fast? I think that's a really big part of the pacing, is making decisions about when you're going up, when you're going down, and what's the pace of going up and down in the emotional arc of each episode. And I think that really helps. If you know that in advance, you plan that in advance, then I think you'll have a really nice rhythm to your storytelling.
Do you think there should be a emotional ups and down in every episode?
You definitely have to have a cliffhanger, right? Like you have to have a feeling of urgency to know what's going to happen next. But that's not necessarily the same thing as up and down emotionally, right? Those two different things. Sometimes they're the same thing, but sometimes not. So I think you're thinking about where your character is in each episode is important, but also then asking yourself at the end of this episode why the audience needs to come back, and making sure that you're creating a very full emotional moment for them to want to come back and see what's going to happen next.
How do you create emotional resonance with the audience?
Depending on how well my actors are and how well we work together. The actors are the people who really bring, that gift of emotion and that gift of being a vessel for the audience, to come in and feel this emotion with them. And then visually with my camera, if I can see a camera movement or a camera angle that will help amplify that emotion, then that's what we do. And that's like the biggest part of the collaboration, is the emotion that the actor brings, and then the camera amplifying that emotion. That's really how you at that place. It's not something that one person does. Like, to me, that's really where it gets really collaborative for us.
How do you create emotional resonance with the audience?
Well, by creating things that are based on authenticity. I know that those stories are bigger, but if you based your things on true human emotions, on authenticity, on creating the layer underneath, people will resonate. And I find that often, the verticals is opening a world of excitement that probably people don't have in their own lives. For the romance, the steamy, things that people would, it just, create an emotional reaction. And I find that basing it on connection and truth, basing it on truth is usually how I personally make the audience react. And a lot of heart or a lot of conflicts. Conflicts is key in these, so that's usually how you get people to feel. So conflicts and heart.
Do you think short drama or verticals should have some character arc? For example, in movies, our male lead have some trauma and he will eventually grow in a maybe next 100 minutes. Do you think short drama do the same thing?
I do, yeah. Yeah, it's different, a little bit more compressed, but I think that's always a powerful and interesting thing to watch in any format is someone who starts off flawed and is flawed, but through meeting someone or going through something becomes better and less flawed. And we see them work through that because any human being can relate to that, to seeing, okay, this person's not perfect, but we can always get better. And let's see how that happens. So yes, I do think that makes a vertical drama much more interesting.
It's like personal side or some kind of physical side or psychological side.
From the characters that I play, it's more that I start off very guarded, whether that's from past trauma or being hurt by someone or losing someone. My heart, usually in the beginning, is closed off to finding true love. And then through, meeting the female lead and all of that, you know, my heart softens through the story and I become more vulnerable and more open. And then you end up rooting for him because you're like, oh, like, he was so standoffish and rude in the beginning, and now he's really sweet. And, this person really opened his heart.
For a actor from maybe film background or an actor never acted before, wants to get involved into short drama industry, what kind of suggestion will you give it to him or her?
I would say really enjoy it. I feel like for me, I've had majority of the feedback that I get from actors is really positive. The working on set with the production teams has been an amazing experience for them. I think as well because it is quite fast paced, usually done within 8 days shoot or something. There's no time for any kind of messing around on set. It's really like a focused environment, a creative environment, and a really fun environment because it's so fast paced. So I would always say to any actor, don't not enjoy the whole process. Understand it, be prepared for on set, things can change. So know that script inside and out, just in case dialogue changes or they want you to, slightly change the kind of script or, do something slightly different and keep quite open-minded. Because I do feel there's a lot of potential. Like I recently just worked on casting a vertical and I had to cast for talent in LA and talent in Italy. Even just the difference in, the American agents and actors and their knowledge of vertical dramas and how to present themselves in a self-tape or even on Instagram, like how the actors are presenting on Instagram was so different to actors that were in Italy. So, I feel as well for actors, it's also a time to, really understand how you are marketing yourself, and whether that be through your agent or whether it be on your own if you've not represented, but how you're marketing yourself as well, so that when we are putting you forward for these jobs, you can be kind of seen and what you're doing on social media or how you're presenting your profile, and just enjoy them because I think they're fun jobs to do.
My name is Bethany Thompson and I am the creative lead sort of business development manager for C Star Productions, which is one of the UK's leading vertical production companies.
Before you receive the script, what kind of common mistakes they have, or somewhere for improvement?
It really varies because we receive the scripts and then we give them to the platforms, and the platforms, they then tell us what they think. I think I've had messages before where they just sometimes it's not the individual episode, it's the overall story arc. So the story arc, I'd say make sure that's really solid, and then make sure you can change it, the beats within it. Be very open to changing your story. I'd also say for writers, the first 10 episodes are usually where we get most of our feedback and most of the change, because obviously a lot of the platforms it's 10 episodes free and then you have to pay to view the rest. So the first 10 episodes I'd say are really important, and just to really hone that in and maybe just have a little peer review session or just reach out to someone who's been successful before if it's your first time pitching, just with the first 10 episodes, just to see if the beats are working.
I'm Kristen Brancaccio, and I have been directing vertical dramas since March of 2024, and now also write them. So I write and direct vertical dramas.
When you receive the script, what are some common script issues that you often need to fix or adjust during the production?
Sometimes the script was clearly written without the realities of like a production's capabilities in mind. So for me, what I try to do, I never want to change what's working, and I never want to change the writer's intention. So if I know I need to make a change or suggest a change, it's for production reasons. Maybe they wrote something that's just not possible to film logistics wise. That could be due to the location. It could be due to just laws surrounding the number of hours you can work with kids, right? If you have a kid that's in every single scene, well, depending on that kid's age, they might not be able to be on set all day long. So, or if there's a lot of scenes with too many characters that more than the budget allows or more than time allows. So any change that I make is always to say, I don't want to lose your intention. I want to keep the stuff that's working, the things that are going to keep the audience here, keep them entertained. What can we do to make it easier on production so that I can make our day and achieve the vision? A lot of times I see scripts where there's a ton of speaking characters, and every time you have a speaking character in a scene, that's an additional setup, right? I need to devote time to lighting that new character and framing up for them and running the scene again and capturing their performance. And so if I have 15 speaking characters in a scene, but I don't have a lot of time to film this scene, well, my suggestion is, hey, can we have the same information and the same emotion, but with 8 characters instead of 15? Because now I've cut in half the amount of work we need to do to relight everyone, but we don't lose the essence of what's happening in the scene, what needs all the emotional beats we need to hit. We can have those same things just with fewer characters. Sometimes I'll suggest combining characters. I'll say, hey, look, we have this one character who's a villain, and then later a new villain comes in, but they're accomplishing the same thing. What if that's just one villain? Does that work? And sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the writers will say, oh, you didn't think about this other element, and that's okay. But usually it's just related to the realities of production. We have 12-hour days. How many pages do we need to shoot a day? How many people are speaking? Can we actually accomplish this? And that's usually then where my notes come in of like, okay, let's make this actually realistic.
Well, you mentioned about the locations. Are there too many locations that scripts writers wrote?
It depends what the location is. So if it's an office in a hospital, well, that's very easy to get, right? We have every vertical company, every production company has a million options there. But if the entire script takes place on an airplane, those are more expensive. So is it realistic to be able to shoot there every single day? Or do we need to move scenes to a place do we need to move some of these scenes to a hospital? So that's sort of the negotiating. You have to have, I always have my director creative mind, but then you also have to balance that with the logistics creative producer mind. And most of these notes are coming when I've already spoken to the production to be like, hey, this is something I feel like could be a problem. Is it a problem? Are we okay with this? Do we need to change it? You tell me. that's sometimes how the conversation goes.
My name is Monica Dahlman, and I'm a casting director in film and TV, traditional as well as vertical. But I've also been working as a vertical microdrama industry consultant and a strategic partnerships advisor and as a consulting producer on vertical microdramas.
An example, like what kind of mistake they will make when you receive the script for reviewing.
If I can tell that they've gone to, like if with episode 1 and there's no clear distinction between the episodes, where there's no cliffhanger, there's no immediate introduction of a story or the conflict or the character. When I'm consulting a company on like how to write for vertical, like if they have a good idea, I always tell them that we need to really hook the audience in that first 10 episodes, or I guess it could be a few more, just before the paywall. We got to hook the audience. And if they really want to just, drag it out, then I kind of feel like maybe read a vertical script or two or watch some verticals first, because it's just a flag to me that people will just be bored. Like if they wanted to be watching a horizontal narrative feature, then that's what they'd be watching. They wouldn't want to, you really need those beats. And some writers that have done TV and film for a long time, they're actually not bad at writing a vertical script, but I think that they have to unlearn some habits before really diving deep into writing for vertical, because I think it might actually be easier to start as a non-writer than it is to go from writing features to writing verticals for some people.
Hi, my name is Jenny Rosen, Senior Development Executive at DramaBox, and I also am a vertical drama screenwriter.
When you write your own script, how do you choose topics? And where do you usually find inspiration?
When I first started in vertical dramas, I had a lot of topics. The topics I would write about was really informed by data of what we knew was performing well. And then it was like, oh, we know these topics are doing well. Pick one that you think is interesting to you. And I always love, of course, my go-tos. If we have enemies to lovers at any point in time or second chance romance, I think those are fun for me. But a lot of things were assigned, or, hey, we're going to try to explore or experiment in this direction. Why don't you try doing this? Let's try doing something different that hasn't really been seen in the vertical space. So I got to do some experimental verticals that sort of like pushed the boundaries or moved in a different direction to sort of test if our audiences were interested in it. And then inspiration for verticals, when I got into doing verticals that were less assigned and things I could really build from scratch. I would really look to friends and family members, sort of personal experiences, people who I've known in my life who have these really dynamic stories or dynamic ways of speaking, and bringing them into the vertical space where you start thinking, what does the vertical version of this person in my life look like? And how can we sort of recreate them or reinvent them for the vertical world? I really enjoy doing that.
You were mentioning about experimenting different topics. Why do you think those topics can be experienced?
Those were things that we were trying to see. For example, Pride and Prejudice was a really fun experiment because at the time there really hadn't been any adaptations of classics at all. I was an English major. I was very much involved in the classic world, and being able to go back and say, how can I take something that's such a widely loved and known topic or classic and then turn it into something that works for the vertical audience? And that was a challenge. There were certain things that worked really well. There were certain things that didn't. And it was a great experiment to see when we're trying to expand into different genres or types or adaptations, what works for the audience and what doesn't, and what did we learn. So I think that was really fun to just, I got chosen for that project, and I enjoyed it. I really had a great time, but it was interesting seeing like, okay, now we know, what did we learn, and how can that inform our filmmaking in verticals moving forward?
My name is Yamila Baena. I'm a bilingual best-selling author in Mexico and also a screenwriter, and I have written a couple of things. I am MDB credits, like a movie, and several vertical series that is like the short drama that we're going to talk about here.
And how do you choose your topics? Where to find your inspiration?
I find my inspiration from everything I see, from all the people I know, of all the things I read, all the things I watch. The reason I started to be a screenwriter was because I watched a thriller series in Netflix while we were at the pandemic, and I hated, and I said I could do it better, and that's why I realized and I wrote my first series, thriller series. So I believe I'm inspired of everything, but also as I understand the pace and the new, I know how to recognize there are certain stories that doesn't work for verticals because you need to have enough things going on in 1 minute. And that's the reason why comedy is so hard it's not that easy to make this space, because in comedy you need different rhythm sometimes, and in verticals you need at least twist, you need emotions, you need to go like a wave every episode. So I believe I've been inspired of everything, as everybody. You can be inspired by talking with your friend and your friend tells you a story, or you can be inspired. I've been, for example, I have a great example. I have this TikTok thing I love that is in reality it's a radio show, and this is only an example, but they do this gig that they make the second date update. And the thing is, like a person that went into a date and thinks it's marvelous, and then the guy or the girl never calls them back, and they are so into them that they call this radio station and they make this guy call them and figure out what went wrong. And the stories are some very funny. So from that kind of thing of real stories, real geeks, that's the seed of something going on. Because there's a girl that almost got married, and it turns out she didn't get married. And so she went and find out where she was stood at the altar. And for 2 years, she looked for this guy. And this is a true story. And she looked for this guy. And when she finally found where he is, to make him say the truth about why he didn't marry her. And it turns out the dad of her gave, I don't know, $100,000 for him not to marry her. And that's a true story. So it's very funny. You find this kind of seeds so you, as a writer, you need to be, you don't know where your next idea can come from. And there are some good ideas, and there are ideas that they didn't mean to stay, but you need to learn to recognize them. The other day I saw in a writer's group, they say, it never happened to you in the middle of a script that you realize this is not the story you want to tell, or this is not the story, Yeah, that happens. And you have to recognize that.
You mean the main character should have more dimensions, or the supporting characters should be also have more dimensions?
I think supporting characters have to have less dimension, because you can't spend enough time with them to be able to give them a lot of dimension. I think your main characters, sometimes it works really well when they're one-dimensional. We have had many vertical dramas where they're not super dimensional, and there are some where you give them a bit more and they're also successful. So I think, again, like, it depends on who you're serving, and it depends on what data sort of dictates works and what doesn't. But again, if you're working in for example, the more indie space in verticals, like, you have a lot more freedom to give characters, explore that dimension. Main characters, way more dimension. But in sort of the mainstream vertical space, I think there's a lot less room for that.
How do you create emotional resonance with the audience?
That's where my close-ups come in. Honestly, I think because we're watching on the phone, and because the phone is just so close and it's right here, and there's a relationship that can always happen between you and the character. And so you can be with this character on their emotional journey in a way they're right there. There's nothing preventing, there's no distance. And so whereas with a TV or a movie, there's an actual physical distance. A movie screen might be really big, but that's a very different experience to having something that you're laying in bed looking at, and it's like right here. And so I really think close-ups are great for conveying really strong emotions, especially with your lead, where you just want the audience to feel exactly what they're feeling. And that's where the close-up comes in.
How do they resonate with the audience, especially vampire and werewolves? They're not a real story, right? What I mean is how those stories resonate with the audience.
I think that different types of stories call for different approaches to directing. And someone who wants a rags to riches, light billionaire story is looking for something very different than somebody who's showing up for maybe a dark, edgy feeling mafia story. So I think the first step is understanding what is the story, what are the tropes, what does this audience expect and want from this story. I think there's some places where you could surprise the audience, but you should never promise them one thing and then deliver something else because then they'll just click away. So I think it's about understanding, why does this type of story work? What do people get out of it? And if it's a genre I'm not familiar with, I should go watch similar verticals, similar movies or TV shows that even deal with those themes and see how they approached it, what I think works and doesn't work. The pacing on these tends to be very fast, but if your story requires a little bit of like sensual energy to it, especially in in an intimacy scene, well, you need to know how to approach that and make sure you're delivering the emotions the audience wants from those types of scenes.
So what do those audience want from certain tropes? Can you give me an example?
Well, I mean, the easy, like a dark mafia story, they want, I think they're a little more okay with shadows. So your approach to actually the cinematography and how you film it could be different, depends on the app. Some are willing to adjust how the show looks to match the energy of the themes. I think when it comes to performance, especially from your leads, if it's a mafia story, I don't want someone who just boldly comes in and plants himself and says exactly what he needs to say with a lot of energy all the time. No, I want him to be a little slower maybe and not always speak so quickly, right? Because that draws you in. You're like, oh, there's a mystery here. This is a mysterious man. That's a different energy than your billionaire CEO that's stomping in to save the day every time and ordering around all his underlings, right? That's two very common tropes and common archetypes we see in verticals, but two very different approaches. And you might have the same actor that's great at playing both. And as the director, your job is to help them remember for this story, this is what we need from the performance. So I think understanding the genre so you can help the actors also really important as as the director, because also they're having to memorize so many pages a day. They're jumping from show to show. Your job as the director is to make sure these tropes and these storylines feel very clear and distinct. So genre we see sometimes is a rom-com. Well, that's going to look and feel very different than any of these other tropes. If you're doing a werewolf one, again, leaning more mafia.
About structure, because I've been asked, some people just ask me how to design the structure. I know it's a little bit difficult question. How do you design the structure of the whole vertical of a story?
Oh, that's very detailed. This is a complicated process. So essentially, really starting out with a beat sheet, a very clear beat by beat breakdown of the entire show. And then understanding, like outlining what are my CPI moments? What are those really clear ad moments, and really focusing on the first 20 episodes to ensure that we are really hitting data-proven CPI moments that are going to bother, frustrate, interest the audience, pique their curiosity, and outlining those. So I'll usually have like a spreadsheet where you can see, here's the summary of what I'm going to do for my episode, and I outline where else are we going emotionally? What do I want the audience to feel? And then once I work on that with my team, and we say, yes, this looks great, let's go to script. Then the writing of the show really actually happens during the outline beat sheet phase for me. Because once you know that's approved and once you know that that's going to work, scripting it is really fast, because you already know what you're going to do, because the conversations, the dialogue for me are already there. That's the easiest part for me, is the conversation. So the most difficult part is making sure that the marketing area verticals and the setup and getting those first 20 excellent is the most important. I'm still learning a lot. I've done a lot wrong. When I started, I was doing it all wrong, and it's really a learning process. But I'm hopefully now I have a much better understanding of how to structure that. But really, for me, the building out of the show all happens at the beat sheet outline stage.
I'm just curious, why 20 episodes? I thought the first 10 or 15 are the free episodes. Why you have to build the 20 episodes?
Because usually when you have really strong drivers, it gives your teams more options for CPI moments that they can show, gives them more options, which is great. Also, I think the first 20, we really focus on obviously pre-paywall episodes. Those are the gold. But first 20, if you're really mastering the episodes after the paywall, it doesn't help you if they leave. If you have really good pre-paywall and then they pay and then they're like, this isn't very good, and I'm only on episode 15. I think in the viewer's mind, when you hit 20 and the story's still good and the pacing is still strong, they're way more inclined to finish and go all the way through than if you just die right after an episode, your paywall. And because paywalls keep changing, you have to go a lot further. And I think 20 is a nice marker point, just script wise, of being able to say, yep, these are really solid. And that should propel the reader or the viewer to keep going for the whole show. I guess it
Normally in
depends.
China, for 65 episodes, our paywall is around 12 to 15. So you can either cut 12 and 15. You can build up the whole emotional, I would say emotional arc until the 15 or 13 or something. In the middle of that, you cut it. And so the audience is so eager to see what's going to happen next.
That's where I've seen it lately, but I've seen some paywalls on different platforms where it's really early, and you're like, oh, but I guess it depends on how they structure the story because sometimes that works.
Normally, how many episodes will you suggest people to write?
Well, this is a conversation that a lot of writers will have where I was used to doing the standard 70 to 80. But I actually, as a viewer, watching shows and studying what shows I feel like this worked really well, I've actually found that doing shows that have anywhere between 50 to 60 episodes are stronger because you don't have to extend the plot past the point where you feel like it's really going to work. I think when we get to 70, 80 episodes, because of the nature of how the short drama episodes are structured and they have to be so high stakes all the time, the story begins to unravel a little bit. And there are many writers who talk about this. They're like, it's much easier and it's much better. I feel like I'm writing better shows when I do it less episodes. Because it just allows me to keep the story much more contained and you don't have to extend so much of the drama as long, like kind of past the point where it seems really succinct and well put together. So the average I know is 70 to 80, but I've seen a lot of different platforms experimenting with doing shorter shows.
If a writer, maybe from a film or novel background, wants to write short dramas, what's your best suggestion?
I'd say story-wise, don't be afraid to go big with it. So if you think, oh, this might be a bit intense, it's not, just go as intense as you want. And also maybe try and go on LinkedIn and find writers who have written for verticals and just ask them if you can see a page of a script or an episode of a script, just so that you understand the structure, because structurally they are different to typical film and television scripts. So it would just be good for writers who are already established just to see the format changed and just to become familiar with it.
What makes a good hook?
I think a good hook at the start of an episode, probably dramatic dialogue always works. An action scene, so even just someone doing something bizarre but saying a normal bit of dialogue. Say someone is like drawing on, if you were drawing on a tomato, but you're saying dialogue, it's a weird hook and you're like, what are they doing? It makes you want to watch and it makes you want to continue the story. Also things like starting at the end and then a flashback to the end and then starting at the story again. That's always brilliant as well. And I'd say at the end as well, like cliffhangers, if you were going to ask me about cliffhangers, I don't think a cliffhanger has to be a cliffhanger every time. It can just be stopping in the middle of an important dialogue, or it can be just before someone turns around. That's a cliffhanger. It can be just before a slap or just before a big action scene. That's a cliffhanger. It can even be just as you're about to introduce a new character. That's a cliffhanger. It doesn't have to be this massive dramatic moment every time. It just has to be a beat that makes someone want to watch the other half of it or the other side of it.
Do you see any script writers that good to capture the audience attention in the first few seconds? How do they write the story?
I think the first episode and the first 10 seconds are the most important. And I think it's going big with it at the start and then condensing it down, which is usually very different from traditional writing. You build up and up. Whereas with verticals, you have the freedom to go big at the start and then go smaller and then go bigger and then go smaller because it's so different per episode. Ones that introduce characters quickly and they don't mess around, so they're straight to the point at the start of the episode. So instead of a big opening scene or a big massive and it takes 2 minutes for the story to be set up, just immediately cut to the CEO in the car with a cigar, and then he sees the main character on the side, the other main lead on the side of the street, and then that's when the story begins. Because immediately you're hooked. Just immediately you know what's happening and you know the story and you don't need anything else.
How this story creates emotional resonance with the audience.
What verticals do really well is I like to compare them to like a comedy. So have you ever watched the US Office or anything like the Office series? Basically, these comedy series, at their hearts, they're a comedy and they're hilarious and you're laughing at the characters. But within the series or within each episode, you get a little emotional beat. And that emotional beat contrasted with the comedy makes you really feel for the characters and it makes you really feel something. And I think verticals do that really well, but they just juxtaposition the emotion with the drama and with the loudness of it. So when you have a moment of quiet or a moment of important dialogue in a vertical, it hits so much harder because it's so different from everything else. If you're up here all the time and then you write a line down here, which is all emotion based, that is really gonna evoke emotion and really gonna retain audiences and make them want to carry on, because then you're making them fall in love and like emotionally connected with the characters.
When you do the casting, so let's say if an actor without any vertical background, but he or she wants to get into a vertical series, what's your suggestion on that?
I would say your show reel is really important. So show reels, if you've done anything like commercials or anything fast paced, that's really important. And it makes you stand out. The ability to just turn a performance around very quickly is what we really are looking for. Also accents. So if you can do an American accent or if you can do any other kinds of accents, that is what we mainly look for, because all of the platforms, they want American accents because everything is Americanized, isn't it? It's all in US, basically, in Europe anyway. I'd also say there's a very typical vertical look. So if you're a woman and you're applying for the role of vertical lady and you have a headshot, one that's very glamorous and one that is a bit more natural, I would say to go for the glamorous one or give both. So then you can show almost two different sides of yourselves and two different perspectives that you could be playing from. And maybe just a good social media presence is also good as well. That's what we look for. So a good social media presence, they're going to share things. If you have a community around you already that are willing to follow you and watch you, we always like that too.
Oh, it really help, right? If they got some followers.
For sure, especially if it's social media, because verticals are all based on your phone. So if you have a lot of followers on Instagram or on TikTok, that your audience is already native to the mobile phone. So there's no reason why they wouldn't watch our dramas. And it also makes it more desirable for platforms if we can say one of our actors has X amount of followers on TikTok and they can bring you this many people who are in their community. That's quite a powerful tool.
That's a good suggestion. Pacing is very important. How do you design pacing in verticals?
We essentially just move as quickly as we can. It's really about like speed and efficiency, but also making sure that while you're moving quickly, you're still telling a properly structured story. You can't move really fast and then all the details sort of fall off and no one understands what's going on. You have to be able to balance it to where anyone could pick up your script. And I think when you've accomplished good pacing, somebody could pick up your script and watch your show and they go, oh, wow, it's over. It didn't feel that long. I think that's a great marker of solid pacing. When you've done a bad job with pacing, I could be like episode 3 and I'm like, what? This isn't 20? How is this taking so long? So I think it's the way in which your audience and even other creatives, if you give them your script or tell them to watch your show, do they feel like it was a long period of time that passed? Did it feel like the story kept moving and the stakes kept them interested? I think it's how does your audience experience time in the story that you've created, and you have to structure it so they don't feel the time.
How do you capture audience attention in 10 or 5 seconds?
Oh, that's very easy. if you start here, you have to and go there. So you have to have at least 3 twists, emotional twists in one episode. And you have to end in a gorgeous cliffhanger. The most important thing is the cliffhanger. If you get the story to have emotions driven, it has to be emotional driven all time. Things has to be moving in the audience. And at the end, it has to be a great cliffhanger. That way you would work, you will do whatever. My example is, do you remember this series Lost? Have you ever watched it?
I watched a few of them.
This series, it's an old series that's called Lost in America. It has the best cliffhangers. I remember I watched that series, and the end was very bad because they didn't think that they have to close the stories, but they were opening them, and it was so thrilling, so thrilling. You couldn't wait a week to watch the next, and that's important. You cannot achieve that every time, but you can try.
How to design the cliffhanger?
You have to base it in the characters and in the actions. For example, if you have this couple of lovers and the husband is going to come and catch them, I noticed there are some writers that don't realize, and it's stupid because it's so obvious, no? But they don't realize they have to make the cliffhanger just when the hand of the husband is, and not when I'm walking through there, or you have to walk through this. I'm calling it the click. When a bomb is about to click, it's clicking. That's the timing. You have to increase the tension and cut it there. I wrote sometimes that we move ourselves as we produce, our brain produce different hormones, and there are an hormone you produce when you're afraid, an hormone when you are anxious, another hormone when you are happy. If you know how to tell a compelling story, you know how to drive your audience through their hormones to get the result you want. And that is used for sales, that is used for advertising, and that is used for TikTok, for social media in general, and that is used for verticals. You need to know what emotion you have to evoke in your audience first. And if you know that, you will know where to cut them. That's the way you have to do it.
How do you design a hook?
In my case, is what would hook me, because I'm not an easy audience. I'm very picky. And when I know that something has to trigger my curiosity, and I believe it's a feeling. You develop the feeling or you have it. It's like something is going to be compelling enough. But I told you a lot of tricks to do it. You need 3 twists at least. You need to produce different emotions, and you need to cut if you were an addict and you want your dose, and suddenly I cut your dose, you will want more. That's the way you do the cliffhangers, So, they are the way different companies work. There are certain companies that they say they need fast. It's a fast pace, but they need quality. So you need to, when you send me the script, you have to already tell me which characters how do they look, the locations, and in each scene, in each episode, you have to say how many characters are there and how many locations. And normally, in a normal script, people don't do that. But if you do that, you are having a lot of time saved for the production team. And it makes sense, because if I'm the writer in the beginning of this page, you can say in episode 1, you have the pool, and in episode 5, you have the pool, and in episode 25, you have the pool. And that kind of things save a lot of money and a lot of time. And that normally is not the work of the screenwriter. But if I deliver that from the start,
in the film and TV background, but they still want to get into vertical, what's your suggestion for them?
My suggestion is to watch some verticals first and foremost, so you understand like what the tone is, the genre entirely, like what we're going for in a scene, but also take some acting classes, get comfortable. There have definitely been an interesting 2 years. Like we've definitely hired some lead actors that had never acted before. And I always feel like we're kind of doing a disservice to those actors if we throw them on set for the first time in a vertical, because people might think of verticals as being really easy, but I would argue that they're actually quite a bit more difficult than a film or TV, like traditional film or TV project. Like my kids are union actors. They've been on huge movies, they've been on huge TV series, and sometimes it'll be one whole day for a scene is what they block out. Because they play with it. They do it a million ways. The director wants to see it 100 different times, but in a vertical, like ideally it's like one take, next setup, one take, next setup. And I feel like that's actually really challenging to do as an actor. You need to be able to make choices. You need to, no one's going to micromanage you. You need to know your character when you show up. You need to know the choices that you're going to make. If you're not a confident actor or if you're new, there's no way that you can possibly go in fully confident. And I feel like that can hold the whole production back. But I also feel like it's not great psychologically for an actor or a person. We've definitely had there have been a few times where, they've wanted somebody that's completely brand new and has never acted based on look. And then I've said, oh, I worked with them in the chem read and I really think they don't know what they're doing. And there might be push from the client or push from whoever to cast them anyway. And we usually have to hold their hand a lot. Or we had one actor who I think was never acted again after that. It's too much too fast. So I've been trying to get as many actors to learn the style and to even going on set in a day player role. We like everyone on the show to be beautiful. So like if you're very beautiful and you've never acted before, like go do a couple scenes, like get a feel for the pace, get a feel for the energy. And then we've pulled a lot of leads out of people who have done day player and supporting roles. I think it's easier for people to not have to doing a vertical as your first acting thing ever, I think would be so challenging. But I also think that moving from the vertical world to traditional film and TV would probably feel like a walk in the park. Only having to do like 5 to 10 pages a day, that's nothing to a vertical actor, right? Like I think it's like the best boot camp for traditional film and TV an actor could probably have.
Hi everyone, my name is Cypress. I was born and raised in Nanjing, China, and I came to United States to pursue a master's degree at University of Syracuse University for television and film producing and focus and writing.
For verticals, different from traditional films and TV?
Well, first of all, the format is very different. And I came from, I did production as well as writing. So I know the very first thing I noticed was, well, you're not going to be able to fit a lot of people in your vertical frame. So a lot of the things are going to be concentrated on people probably talking, because with your budget, you can't do shit. So we have to focus on the drama, which was very exciting to me because when I was in college, when I first started to do anything remotely close to writing, was reading plays. Then I became a playwright before I even did screenwriting. So what was incredibly exciting for me was that, oh, we're just going to boil down every story to the essence, which is people arguing, basically. That's how plays were invented, and that's how every drama worked. So that was the biggest difference. So I thought, okay, we're going to strip a lot of the fancy elements of film and TV, traditional film and TV, and boils down to humans arguing about things and having right and wrong opinions at the same time, which is the core of drama. And then the next thing, obviously, is you have to do like a cliffhanger every 60 seconds to 90 seconds. So the pacing of all those shows would become incredibly faster than traditional TV and film. So you can't really build a whole character, like lay the ground for it or do a world building or anything like that. So you just have to get right into it. So that was the two things that I just clocked in my mind from the beginning. So I think if you ask me what defines it, what's the essence of it, I think it was we're actually going back to like the origin of dramas.
My name is Judah Ray, and I am the founder of Butterfly. That is a production studio in Los Angeles, California, out here in the United States of America. And my role as a producer and a creative producer is working everything from concept creation, westernizing, which is, taking IP from international and making it work here in the States, to production, delivering everything from light, sound, directors, talent, all the way through completion and deliverables.
What do you think is their essence?
The essence, that's kind of funny. I think their essence is mechanics and formula. I think their essence is knowing the human psyche and knowing how retention works. I think their essence is dopamine hits and serotonin levels. I think their essence is an echo of the human experience that, drives to our most basic animal instincts. So far, that's what I believe are the essence of these. And, as I would say, a commercial, and people might, gawk at me about that, but that is the essence. Doesn't mean you can't have a Coca-Cola commercial that's beautiful and driving and makes people feel emotional. Look at Apple. Apple does commercials that move people. Used to do commercial that move people, and these are basically, in my mind, the same thing. Yes, I care about story and I care about character, but when I talk to people about writing these, I tell them, if you don't care about story and character, first of all, what are you even doing in this? Like, we all know story and character. We all know arc. Like, those are the obvious parts of this. That's like thinking that you know about the mechanics of a car because you know what it is, or because you know how to work the radio. Like, no, that's just the aesthetics. That's just what pulls people in. And an example, I like to use advertising heat, right? So with advertising heat, to me, if I'm doing a show about, say, the main star is a plumber, what am I going to do heat-wise? Like, who's going to want to advertise with this app/platform? Well, in America, we call it Roto-Rooter, or like plumber supplies, Home Depot. When we're talking about content that's more geared towards like YA, when you look at stuff like what Candy Jar's doing, that's the kind of stuff that brings advertising heat, like Poppy Soda, like Coca-Cola, clothing brands, music artists, people like that want to advertise around that. And I know it sounds weird that I'm talking about this when we're talking about short drama, but to me, there's two things we're trying to do here. Number one is we're trying to create something that drives people to the platform, drives heat and advertising to that platform. So with call to action, we're trying to drive the person that's watching this to actually take part in the app, download the app, go to the app, pay through the paywall. I mean, these are our number one priorities. Number two, of course, it's important, our story, our character, our arc. Part of that is, like I said, bringing that animalistic human nature elements out. That's, of course, done through story and character. So that's still important. But this is where I think, people are starting to put the other before and trying to see if story and character will drive these. And I really don't believe so. I really believe, keeping in mind what our goal is here, to keep them in the episode, to retain that attention, to, keep them next episode, binge watching them over to the app, are things that a lot of people are overlooking right now that we got to maintain as an important part of what we do.
My name is Mauricio Ozaki. I'm a filmmaker, creative director of Loopy Films, where we create original short dramas, and we also do localization. We've been doing mostly in English, and now we also been in talks to create series in Portuguese and Spanish.
How do you create emotional resonance with the audience?
I think, it starts with casting. We need the actor and the actress that they can understand the character, understand the text, and bring emotion because you cannot fake. I think people can is not something you can fully explain, but people can feel when you're watching a movie, when you're watching a vertical drama. Always emotional. Oh, I believe in that guy. I believe in that character. I feel what he's feeling, and I think when we achieve that, the series can have a good viewership.
When you choosing actor, what makes you decide this is the one? This is the one I'm looking for.
Usually, I'm always nowadays watching many dramas, and then whenever I see an actor I really like, I always add on Instagram, send a message, try to keep in touch, and then I start thinking, oh my God, I love that actor, love this, I would love to work with him or her. And then when I receive a script, I try to think, oh, which actor that I like could be ideal for this character. Then we do a tape, an audition. So I always like to take one scene of the script, send to a few actors, having them reading, and then I can see, and then sometimes different actors they were gonna interpret different versions of that character, and sometimes it's not which one is better or worse, but which one fits better that story, and that's how I try to choose.
But those are actors with proven records, right? You've seen their shows before.
Some, yes. I work with actors that I have not seen any shows of them, or they were new to the vertical dramas, and then we still did an audition. They will perform well on the vertical.
My name is Joy Quinn. I'm one of the producers, the co-owners of 916, and also the production design, and I guess the artistic director of the company.
My name is Max, and I'm a co-owner of 916 Productions, and I'm a producer.
How do you create emotional resonance with the audience?
We've created 6 original, I would say 5.5, because one of the 6 was a rewrite. Despite this is a new product or new form of media, but essentially still storytelling. So I think it's important, no matter how rich you are or how much power you have. I think the most important core thing still comes down to if the character has flaws, if they are relatable to the audience. I've heard from my producer friends and actor friends, like they're getting tired of that, and they never liked a lot of the roles they played. They want to play roles they are more dimensional, or they have flaws, and they can relate. We're actually writing a script for another company, and then I was involved in the writing part. I co-wrote the treatment, which was really fun. So when we wrote the treatment, still, we try to give the main characters a lot of ground, and then just I think creating from the female gaze in the script development process is really important, and then finding that on set is also very important. So creating from the female gaze, and also making the characters more relatable. I think that's really important.
Having a character that's more relatable, but also having the fantasy elements, I think is really important. Because what's the point of having a relatable character when it's not fulfilling a desire that I think some viewers wish they had in real life? With it's obviously not real. Just like the ideal person who will do anything for you, or to be able to have your life change your life in that way. I think a lot of people really do see it as an escape, as a fantasy, and that so I think the female lead itself, it needs to be more dimensional, more realistic, so more people can latch on and be like, oh, that could be me. I could have someone to sweep me off my feet like that. Does that make sense? It's the lure of rising to greatness, to right all the wrongs that they've ever experienced. I feel like that's definitely a theme of all verticals, right? Happy ending, happy ever after. Being a good person off.
So how do you create character that resonate with the audience, that the audience can relate to?
The female lead. You create someone Yeah, so it's either, I feel like the two strongest ways to resonate is one, usually the female lead has been wronged or abused, um, emotionally, physically. Her life is not going great, and you know she deserves so much better. You do know she deserves so much better. So how does she achieve that? And how does she triumph from someone who's evil, usually this mistress or the second girl who's trying to get the same guy? Does that make sense? What can she do to outsmart or do to have the villain of the story be punished? We want to see justice. It's a human psychology. That's what makes us feel good. It's the dopamine rush of, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's been so wrong in her life. I need the gratification of seeing what is wrong being put to right. That literally is the resonance for we all have, right? We always want the hero to win.
First of all, I'm no screenwriter. So it's just speaking from my experience from, producing all the shows and then talking to all the creatives and to the directors, I feel like sometimes, despite the female gaze, we need to film. Literally, the female gaze to film the abs and all that, and how they view the male. And also, I feel like in both writing and filming is to create how the female leads or characters wants to be treated in real life, and then even like for the male lead or character as well, to having some authentic, vulnerable moments, and for the female, for the character development, they crave and want to be seen. I feel like I think that's important
I think that's the human condition. So I think in the digital age where we are supposedly be more connected than ever, we're disconnected than ever. And it's really rare for us to find somebody who truly sees us to be seen as who we are. So to have that connection, that chemistry of someone who gets you, for example, the rich guy who is really cold in exterior, who does not see his inner world, to have somebody who is so different from him to be seen like that. So it goes both ways, female and male. And that goes hand in hand with chemistry, goes hand in hand with being seen completely and understood and be right and justified. So that's more into what you said. Exactly. That was really well pointed out. Yeah, to be seen.
I literally had that when I was creating a new script around that concept.
Will you give any suggestion on the structure of the whole script writing for verticals?
I think the timeline is pretty harsh, pretty tight. And then so basically the process goes like the screenwriter and the production house are propose an idea to whoever platform or client. And then this could be a one-pager, could be just a log line, could be a concept, and could be a synopsis with a few episodes. So different forms or different forms of proposal. And then you work on getting approved, and then you get as much direction as possible from the client. And then from there, you go write out the episodic treatment, which takes, I think, anywhere between 7 to 10 days. In this, and we have found out, I think it helps the creators to give each episode like a name, like a short name, and then you write out each episode, the treatment, a summary of each episode, and then you write out the hook of each episode, and then you work with the platform to get this approved. Sometimes, most likely, there's a rewrite on the treatment, and after that, you move into the actual screenwriting, and which takes a week or 10 days, and then 3 rounds, just like post-production, like 3 rounds of revision. And then that's the process. And then any pointers I could give for to the script development process.
When it comes to the structure, I think writing itself, obviously you have to end every episode with a hook and a punchline of some sort. That's usually the writing process when it comes to actual writing the script itself. I feel like there's a formula. Once you watch enough verticals, you will kind of, like, most people will understand what a vertical is all about. It's the punchlines and the hook that makes you want to keep scrolling into the next chapter and the story be compelling enough for an audience to pay for the whole show.
Every project is different and every platform is slightly different as well. They look for different things. So we have created a lot of like script with very intimacy heavy. Like you have to have intimacy by at least we have to have intimacy by the end of episode 1 or episode 2. So we took the same mindset to develop the current project, but the client didn't like that. So for this project, we didn't have intimacy scenes till mid-story. So I think that it's very important to stay communicative with your client and ask what they want and the direction and the vibe, and then go from there. Otherwise, to avoid a lot of rewrite.
That's like, I guess that's true for not just script writing, but for essentially every show. Make sure I have this conversation so early to the platform, because before when we first did this, we had no idea, no experience, everyone has to start somewhere. We were casting people that was pleasing to us, and the platform hated everything. So you have to kind of at the beginning, before you even start, say, what is your goal? What is your beauty? Like, what is your vision? What is the vision of your film? Like, what do you want the characters to be? Give us examples. And usually then the platform will provide examples, and then we do it their way, just to make sure we give the client exactly what they want.
My name's Karen Smolinski, and my background is as an entrepreneur in Asia, ironically, but mostly in Japan. I built a 7-figure company there. So I bring my experience in business and entrepreneurship over to the film industry. I started in microdrama, verticals, short dramas. I don't know what term we're going to end up on, but we all know what I'm talking about, as an actress. So I'm still actively acting in them. And there were a lot of values that didn't align with me. And so I believe in showing up and being the change that you want to see. So I decided to step into producing and directing.
How do you get the inspiration from?
My mind is a very busy place. I have so many ideas in my head. And so often it starts from pretty much everybody that I cast. It are people that I know or that I've worked with, and then I'll give some newcomers some opportunities. So with the key players, I generally have someone in mind when I'm writing it. So I already have the actors in mind. And then, for example, with Tides of Desire, I've traveled all around the world, and such a common theme in tropical places is that the rich developer comes in, they buy up all the beach, the local people can't afford to be there, they're pushed to do things that they don't want to do for their family to survive. So that kind of was where that started. Also, the sea turtle population in Nicaragua was jeopardized with that, so I brought a little bit of the environmentalism in, but also baby turtles are really cute. But I have so many scripts in development in my head, and the one that we just filmed as a spec this weekend is A Second Chance in Love at the Ranch one, and I wrote that so that I could play a lead that I felt good about, that was not getting degraded or abused or all of those things. But there's still drama and family dynamics and a big secret, but she goes back to the ranch and her first love is there. And so then the sparks fly.
How do you choose your topics? Where do you usually find inspiration?
Driving back into the fact that this to me is about human nature and about animal instincts. I kind of look at two different things. I look at one, the zeitgeist, what's driving people right now, what gets under people's skin, what do people think is hot, what do people think isn't hot, what do people, what's trending right now, as in like, what lifestyle ideas are trending and what, sometimes glamour and glitz is trending. Sometimes grunge and underground is trending. What advertisers want to, usually advertise around right now is important to me. I will say, as a producer, some of it plays into what we can shoot on budget, what locations we have access to. That does play if you're smart and you want to make these and not just talk about making them. And once again, reverting back to how this industry operates and our budget levels and things like that. These are important things to keep in mind, and how much you're going to spend and where you could shoot realistically, and what can be done within a budget constraint is something I believe helps inspire these a lot. Also, advertising heat, what will draw in advertisers? Going back to the plumber analogy, if my main guys or my main female or whatever my antagonists and protagonists are they something, the character that advertisers are going to want to advertise around the world that I've built with this person, that's important to me. All these things I have to try and take into consideration when I'm looking at projects. And of course, the number one thing is, what is the app and platforms looking for? Because each app and platform has their kind of own style and their own genre and their own kind of quadrants that they chase. So this is a business. So what quadrants are, going right now? What's hot? What are they looking for exactly? Communicating with the platforms and apps and finding out what their mandates are and what they're kind of looking at will sometimes placate into what stories we tell. Once
Yeah.
again, information, being informed, knowing what's going on, not just in the world, but within the zeitgeist of these platforms and apps. I think that's all super important when choosing stories. Where, cinematically and widescreen, it's more I'm trying to appeal to, character and the human experience at its core and how I can take that character through an arc. This is more what works with the platform, what genres of the platform usually do, what quadrants do they usually stay within. That kind of dictates more with this medium what stories I look at or what stories we create as original IP over here. And then, of course, usually a lot of this is recreated or repurposed IP. So what IP is hot right now, what shows are hot right now, what are the number one trending on the apps, and what is the similarities between all those top trending series right now. I always tell people there's two ways that you can create. You can create out of a dream and hope that one day you're going to make this or sell this or get contracted to do so. Or if you want to work right now, what's happening right now? Pay attention to that, create something to that, and yeah, still have your dreams of building something in the future and have that locked and loaded and ready to go. But if you want to work right now, you should definitely be in tune to the zeitgeist of what's happening and what everyone's looking for and the mandates that people are requiring, so you can kind of write towards that and keep those going. Because these aren't like screenplays where they take 2 or 3 years to write them for some people. People can crack these out in a week. I know people that can crack these out in a couple of days. So if you look at the timeline these are built in, we're in a feature if you write to the zeitgeist, right? If we're in the narrative world and I write to the zeitgeist, I will take, we'll take a normal month to a year to write. Then it's going to take you a couple of years to shop it. It's going to take you a year to make it, another year to get the distribution. 5 years later, the zeitgeist has completely changed. But something like this, I could write one of these in a couple of days. We can shoot it out in 8 to 10 more days. We can have it in editing for a week and realistically have one of these made in a month. That's, not much has changed in a month in the zeitgeist from when you first had this idea to when it's actually made. So that gives you a clue to what you should be writing towards, not what you think is going to be happening in the future if you want to work right now, but actually what's selling right now, because that's going to be sold right now. It's going to be made right now, and it's going to come out right now. And that's right. What's exciting about this? We're not taking everyone. I'll cap with this. Everyone asked me why I got into this because I love narrative storytelling. I love being on set and working with actors and directors and putting projects together. Like I love all that. But I don't love it that it takes, sometimes a year to 5 years to 10 years to make a feature This gives me a narrative form I could do in between that we can do to the zeitgeist. I speak to today's audience. I can talk to the now. I can put stuff out there frequently and be working consistently, which I think is what really people love about this, is that consistent work, because, we can make these relatively fast.
China, the trend is gonna move by around 3 months because it's a very competitive market. So maybe these 3 months, there is some kind of regret trope. 3 months later, change it to another trend. How do you write your hooks and what makes a good hook?
That's been the hardest thing as a writer, for sure, to keep continuity and keep a good story, because it does feel counterintuitive be doing this so often. So finding a natural break where it's a moment of what are they going to say next? What are they going to do next? And then pairing that with a visual and then cutting there. So that's been my biggest challenge for sure, is the hooks.
Give any suggestion on the structure of the whole script writing?
Obviously, you have to end every episode with a hook and a punchline of some sort. That's usually the writing process when it comes to actual writing the script itself. I feel like there's a formula. Once you watch enough verticals, you will kind of, like, most people will understand what a vertical is all about. It's the punchlines and the hook that makes you want to keep scrolling into the next chapter and the story be compelling enough for an audience to pay for the whole show.
Every project is different and every platform is slightly different as well. They look for different things. So we have created a lot of like script with very intimacy heavy. Like you have to have intimacy by at least we have to have intimacy by the end of episode 1 or episode 2. So we took the same mindset to develop the current project, but the client didn't like that. So for this project, we didn't have intimacy scenes till mid-story. So I think it's very important to stay communicative with your client and ask what they want and the direction and the vibe, and then go from there. Otherwise, to avoid a lot of rewrites.
That's like, I guess that's true for not just script writing, but for essentially every show. Make sure I have this conversation so early to the platform, because before, when we first did this, we had no idea, no experience. Everyone has to start somewhere. We were casting people that was pleasing to us, and the platform hated everything. So you have to kind of at the beginning, before you even start, say, what is your goal? What is your beauty? Like, what is your vision? What is the vision of your film? Like, what do you want the characters to be? Give us examples. And usually then the platform will provide examples, and then we do it their way, just to make sure we give the client exactly what they want.
How do you design the whole structure of your story? For example, there is 65 episodes. How do you design the structure?
I actually find that very easy, because I think I've always, I've worked with writers and producers and directors who had been nominated for Emmys, won Oscars. From all I can tell, because you can only tell your ability by what other people say about you, because you're a creator and people would judge the final product, what you put out. So from what I can gather over the years and what people say about me is that I was always a very structural person. So in screenwriting, you have so many different elements about it, but structure was always something that I just have to do first. No one asked me. Sometimes apps don't even ask me to do an outline. I would always do it because I need it. This is how stories are born. So how do I design a structure? For me, I basically just translated the 3-act structure from a movie to vertical series. Act 1, you gotta set up the stage and put characters in, have an inciting incident, and by end of Act 1, they have to launch on a new journey or start to solve the problem you gave them. So that would be the first paywall, usually. So that would be the first 7 to 10 episodes. And then after that, Act 2 is you have to complicate this journey. You have to add more obstacles, complications to it. And by midpoint, the story should take a turn, which is usually the second paywall, episode 25 or 30. depending on how long you want it. And then the second part of Act Two, which is 30 to maybe 45, you try to even further increase the obstacle and complications and make this journey as difficult as possible. So you reach the end of Act Two, which is everybody knows darkest night. You make them at the lowest low, and you make people wonder where the fuck do they go? How do they get out of this? And then by probably 45 to 60, because I do 60 episodes most often. So that would be 45 to 50 episode at that point. Then you build this climax, how they miraculously overcome all those complications and obstacles and reach a very satisfying ending. So a lot of things happen there and just go to the end. Even when I train writers, people ask me like, how do I adapt to this medium fast enough? I was like, go back to what you know and translate it. It's not something new. People keep saying it's a new thing that was invented. No, all the new things were invented in the 60s, 70s, hooks, cliffhangers, pacing, soapy stuff, melodrama. That was from like the ancient Greeks. So you just go back to what you know, and the golden 3-act structure in Hollywood has been working for so many years. Just use that as a guideline and just do that and divide them up. So do that kind of structure. That's how I've been doing it. I think it's effective and it's fast. It gets more people who's never done this before into this field a lot faster because I speak the language that they understand instead of creating this barrier, saying this is something you have to learn. We have a formula. I would look at the formula because some apps would even try to dissect my shows and create a formula. I was like, you don't have to do that. It was already out there.
If a script writer who wants from a film or TV background who wants to write vertical dramas, what's your suggestion to them?
Go back to the basics. Structural work, like I said, just really hone in on the 3-act thing, and then maybe watch 1 or 2 shows or reading scripts. Reading the scripts of 1 or 2 shows would be the most beneficial so that you can literally translate what I was just talking about, the act structure, because 3-act, 8-sequence thing is taught in every film school. Most people who've been working in TV and film would already know that. So you just translate that into the new terms and episode breakdowns. So do that first and then try to get the flair of it. Try to understand you can actually go more out there in those kind of verticals. They are not so serious like American TV. It has to be deep. You have every line people say has to have subtext. You actually can give yourself a little break from that. Don't do too much in the subtext, and do more about making it out there.
How can they find scripts to read?
I always give writers who ask me what I own the rights to, and just please read this and see what was different from the traditional TV and film. In the sense I would even analyze it for them. Like normally in an episode 1 of a TV show, this would be how it goes. But now you see we have to strip away all those other elements and just go straight to the bone.
Maybe they should just watch the whole show.
Yeah, watch the show and really, almost like you're in film school again, you just write down what happens at minute what and episode what, and then pull the whole structure out for yourself.
For a new writer, if they want to get into this industry, what's your suggestion on that?
So I work with a few different writers when we do the originals. And I think now there's a lot of platforms. There's a lot of new platforms. One suggestion is to write a spec script. Like, for example, take a original and maybe they can write 10 episodes, 5 episodes, and maybe try to talk to the newest platforms. And I think platforms, they're always looking for writers who can work in a fast pacing, who can create lively characters, who can localize stories, even with all the advances of AI. I don't believe AI will ever be able to write a script that resonate with us. So writing jobs will be there. I mean, or another suggestion is we've been talking about that. There's a lot of platforms that they have a big collection of IPs from their web novel. If you take one of that web novel uh, and then do a 10 episodes adaptation, send to the platform, what do you think? Is a way to connect. Another way, and I think that's essential as well, is to follow a bit what's going on in the community. Watch the Short Drama Alliance, watch the podcast, what's going on, because there is some skills. To write a vertical drama, it's not like to write a feature film or short film or documentary. So there are specific tropes and skills that you need to learn to write the short drama.
I'm Cassandra Young. I'm on behalf of RisingJoy. RisingJoy is a very dedicated microdrama licensing company and content hub. So we are building our global B2B networks among more than 20 countries. And I think now it's up to 50 microdrama apps.
Are there any common legal policy or cultural challenges you've encountered when licensing Chinese content abroad?
I think that there's still a lot of the room for the Chinese microdrama improve. Because I used to be a traditional media person, so I was work on the long form content licensing as well. So compared with the mature industry, I think Chinese microdrama, they still need to understand the demand of the international market and the standards. For example, lots of the Chinese microdramas, they don't get the music right for global use, right? So you may find that even some titles get promoted on the YouTube. There is no background music. There is no SFX because they didn't or they don't print music rights for the global use under the micro budget. And of course, the first market, because the first market is China, so they don't need to think about it. But if the business grows bigger in the international, I think this is one big issue we need to figure out together with the studio, as long as we bring more business to them. And I think also for content compliance, because our expertise is to bring content to the local platform. We make a lot of different content compliance when we enter UAE, when we enter UK, or especially for the MENA and the Europe market. Content compliance, such like everyone will ask me, is there any age grading for the microdrama? Or is there too many nudity or something in the microdrama? There's a lot of the traditional questions come to us. So I think maybe in the future, we will upgrade the content licensing of the Chinese microdrama to meet the global standard, especially if we explore our partnership with the big giants like the top 5 streaming platforms globally. We must meet their standard, right? So that's the thing we need to do. And also, I think that lots of the market feedback currently is not just asking for the existing content licensing. They are also asking for the script format. Okay, that's definitely a new word for the Chinese microdrama industry, because no one is doing or is very focused on doing microdrama script format at this moment, script format or script adaptation. So we are also trying to explore our capability with different partners on making script format. I think that's a new thing we can try together, right?
When introducing Chinese stories to international audiences, which cultural elements usually require the most adaptation or contextual explanation?
we will separate micro drama into the different genres, and generally we will separate like it's a modern or it's a Chinese historical costume micro drama. So I think for the modern story, it will be fun because if it's always romance, or it is like from rags to the riches, underdog attack, I think that's the universal storytelling. But for some like the Chinese culture thing, such like you using a jade that you get the superpower, that will be some cultural conflicts with the different religions area, right? And also there is like Chinese costume, right? They work well in Southeast Asia. But if they go to the Europe or go to the US, Latin America, especially about some village story or suburb story, so there is still some cultural difference. But anyway, I think that if we are focused on the modern genre, the modern romance, modern family, right, modern career, that's a universal story.
Hi everyone, my name is Dana Protashak. I am founder of VertIGo and LA Vertical Drama Market.
Plans for the LA market and your own projects going forward?
So right now, a slate of original verticals, which we are talking to different platforms about writing and producing them. Also, we are trying to establish a writer's room where we can write script in a more efficient way and later possibly producing them. And also we are in early development stages of our own platform. So all hands on deck in the vertical space.
Were there any female creators involved in this year's market?
Yeah, I feel there were a lot of women creators there. We have directors panel where we had a lot of women. Basically, I feel like every of our platforms, they have at least one or two women. To be honest, I feel this media is for women because the fans who came and reviewers who came to our event, we had like a special fan event as well, a fan panel as well. They were all female. So we are creating the content for females. So who is better suited to produce and make this kind of content than women?
From that perspective, do you think short drama or verticals, this format open up doors, more opportunities for female creators in the industry?
Yeah, definitely. I can tell that a lot of clients, they want female directors because they feel that we directing romance and that they know better what can catch other women's eye. That's one thing. And also, it just like if you look at the data, the demographics, female audience is still like the main target audience for verticals. So majority of platforms, they want female directors, female writers, producers, not so often, but directors and writers, yes, 100%.
If there is a new writer, like from film or novel background, or even not from those background, want to get into verticals, what's your suggestion based on that?
I would suggest they, first of all, study the format, that they watch a couple of verticals from top platforms just to get acquainted with what this genre is about, and then like be open-minded about that it's not a feature script, it's a vertical script. I love that sometimes some scripts have even known that this is a vertical script and some things may not make sense. So they should be aware of that. They should write a spec probably, and then try to show it to some people, producers who already work in the verticals, and try to get in as a staff writer. But if you have, again, if you have your own story, if you think after watching verticals that it can make a good vertical, write the whole script and try to pitch it to producers, because right now they are more open to it than ever before.
My name is Bethany Thompson.
As a woman, do you feel you have certain advantage in the short drama industry? If yes, what are they?
I think yes and no. I think yes, because I think emotionally we're more receptive to the stories and we understand them more and we understand why they work. And also I think I'm more open to explore different parts of the industry. But then I'd say also maybe not, because a lot of the platforms are owned by men and they're owned by tech founders or tech people who are all men. So it's hard as a woman to explain the importance of these stories or what stories work and what stories won't work when some of the platforms are controlled by men who don't understand production or don't understand stories, which is hard because I think for me, I know the sort of stories that can work and the sort of genres that we can use to push forward, which is really powerful because I'm able to communicate and emotionally to resonate with the stories. But I'm at a slight disadvantage because when I bring it to the platforms or new platforms, they're like, why is this? I don't believe it. It was like, I don't believe this is going to work. So I'd say there's swings and roundabouts to it all.
From your observation, do you think the way female leads are portrayed in short dramas has any issues or areas for improvement?
I think there's definitely areas for improvement on some of the stories. I think as a format, obviously they're very big, very entertaining stories, but I don't think that means you have to belittle or hurt women in these stories. I don't think there's any reason or any benefit to a story to degrade or to hurt a woman in your story. I don't think I haven't seen a single benefit from it. And I haven't seen any story that doesn't have a slap in it, which has performed better than one that doesn't have a slap in it. It's just there for the sake of being there and because it's traditionally there. So I think I'd like to see less of that and maybe more. I think there's so much more power in a look or in a face than in a slap. I think that's a bit of a cop out sometimes. So I think, yeah.
My name's Karen Smolinski.
As a woman yourself, do you see short drama giving you opportunities?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that this is the Wild West right now. I think there are so many opportunities for people that are going out and taking it. And I do see that the opportunity for the next phase. So I know of 3 different women-led platforms that are in development right now. Chera TV is about to launch, and all the values that I just spoke about are things that are aligned with them. And I'm excited to see, if you listen to the fans and the fan pages, they want to see some evolution. So I'm really hoping that these evolved platforms succeed.
As a woman, have you encountered any challenges?
For me, because of my demographic, there's a lot less intimacy. But intimacy isn't just sexuality. Intimacy is interrelationship. And as I've said before, it's really hard to get hit over and over and over and get slapped or slap people or stick nails in my daughter's shoes or put bags over their heads, like it's soul crushing as a woman to be doing that and as an actress, but also I am vocal about it in my producing, but as an actress, I have some lines. I will not participate in anything that has violence against children. Just won't do it. But I do portray those villain roles, and they're very fun to portray. I love being the villain. But I think ultimately there are times when you have to say something, and it's very hard to stand up and say something. Sometimes I'm advocating for a younger woman on set. It's not always for me, but it could impact us getting hired or me getting future jobs if I'm more vocal or if I refuse to do something. Recently I said that there was a cover photograph that I didn't want to be on if they portrayed a certain thing in it. And will I get hired by them again? Probably not. So as a woman, that's hard.
Could you briefly introduce yourself and your role in short drama industry?
Hi, my name is Jen. I'm the founder of Vertical Drama Love, which is a combination of fan-created content, reviews, articles about the industry, advocating for better things in the industry. I also do media speaking, consulting, basically here to help the industry grow and generate more work for everyone.
What kind of feedback have you received from the audience about the content or the actors involved?
They want to give awards to everyone. I think the challenge this year is, so last year it was for everything brought out in 2024. The challenge this year is obviously the sheer volume of content that is created is exponential. So I think the hard thing is narrowing it down. So one of the big things we're doing is last year I just had an award for Vertical of the Year, which were 10 verticals, and then people voted. That feels too narrow now. So there's going to be 10 separate categories for different types of verticals, for instance, a fantasy vertical. And then, which means that overall there'll be 100 that will go into that. And then the top ones of that will then go into Vertical of the Year. So that was a big change just because of the sheer amount. I'm also bringing in things as well, like we wanted something to recognise some of the older actors and actresses. And obviously by older, I'm saying like over 40, so really not that much older. But just to try and recognise other people in the industry as well. So having like a matriarch of the year and a patriarch of the year, because obviously some of those characters, you know, they might be evil, they might be wonderful in vertical dramas, but there's amazing performances, and it's trying to just increase where we're spreading the light and recognising and rewarding people that matter to fans.
Giving them more exposure.
Exactly, 100%.
Right now, as an expert in short drama industry, what change or trends have you noticed in the content over the past few years?
I think the content has diverged this year. There's obviously certain apps have doubled down on the kind of clickbait, shock, rage content. So there's definitely been an increase in, you know, violence against women. Just put stuff that's clearly just put into shock and grab the attention for the social media algorithm and the marketing. It is also landing as well. I personally don't like it at all. I find it quite distressing and unpleasant, but it is landing. So you have to understand this is hitting something for some people. So trying to understand why. But I also think there is a cry to not just rely on reskinning Chinese IP. So I think there's a real push for original content as well. I think the Chinese IP always has a place because I think there's brilliant stories that come over, but people want original content as well. And one of the things I've really noticed is we have waves of fans now. So you have fans like myself who've been watching for nearly 2 years. We've seen a lot of the stories that are redone and redone. So for us, it's like, I don't need yet another version of, you know, the husband does this and the wife does this, blah, blah. So we're looking for newer and fresher content. Then you've got people who've come in maybe a year ago and they haven't watched quite as much of that, so they're kind of okay. And then you've got people who are only just coming in the last 6 months. So all those storylines are fresh to them. So I might look at something and go, I've seen this lots of times, but that viewer hasn't. So I think that's the challenge now. You've got viewers at very different stages who are ready for different content. I think what's clear is that production is going up. So, you know, lighting's improving, camera shots are improving, which makes sense with the fact that obviously there's a lot more legacy Hollywood people coming in, more people taking time. There have obviously been some great experiments with new genres. I think it's still a bit of a struggle to get the audience there because I think the key audience is here for romance. But, you know, Game of Choice is brilliant. It's utterly brilliant. It's, you know, it's kind of Squid Games versus Saw sort of vertical. So I think it proves you can do action and shock and put in those those beats. So yeah, it's just really exciting, I think, and seeing where it goes. And I think there's just going to be this real spread of type of content. And rather than just having 1 or 2 apps dominating, I think people are going to just break out across different apps as they get their sort of brand identity. And then people will find the apps that suit them. So for instance, my audience tends to be similar to me and appreciate similar stuff. So my audience will always go for Candy Jar. Candy Jar tends to be the app that they like best for the most content. If that makes sense. And I think it's going to be like that. There will be, you know, audiences for different apps.
The beginning part, I didn't get it. So you mean more violence?
Yes, there's definitely been a very big increase in violence against women, violence against children, shocking content. There's a lot now of seeing pregnant women being hit and assaulted at forced abortion. Some hideous stuff around characters who are disabled, them being maltreated. Things that, for me, my thought is, as well as I don't want to see it and it's unpleasant, I think it delegitimizes the industry. It makes it easier for everyone who wants to say this is rubbish. However, I am aware that I am coming with a Western European sensibility and these things are getting watched. So you have to at least try and sit back and understand why are these things getting watched. You know, we are viewers all around the world with different culture, slightly different values. So yeah, it's kind of, I understand why they're made. I understand that they work for the social media algorithm. The thing that concerns me is that I know that a lot of creatives don't want to make them, you know, so you have got good directors and good actors and actresses turning down work. And I know of a few who've left the industry because they don't want to be associated with that sort of work. So I think this is the challenge. It risks all the people who are trying to make better stuff and tell beautiful stories and put more art and soul into it. I think that's the danger. But those people are there, and I think those they will all find their home. It's just, as I said, it's just going to spread. There will be people who watch that, but there will be people like me, and that I will try and guide them to, who will go, here is the beautiful stuff, here is stuff that has more diversity, here is stuff where there's real quality. I think that's the same for every media form. If you look at any form of TV or books or, you know, whatever, there is that really widespread, isn't there, of sort of quality and what people enjoy. So yeah, it's just going to keep widening, I think. I've just done a fan survey, so I have data from over 1,600 fans who filled it in. They are very, very fed up of the drugging. Then it brings into questions consent around sex. So that's actually the thing that the fans told me they were most upset about. People are also fed up with the slaps and the violence. I think it's difficult. I think there is a level of some of it has to be there for the drama. I think a lot of it gets excessive. I can't watch anything where there's anything about a pregnancy or like that that's being badly done. That's an instant, I'm out. I immediately exit. I think it's gone both ways. I think some of them show more, and there's a lot more of this humiliation and brutality. But on the flip side, we've also had dramas come out recently which have much stronger female leads. So I think it's I'm the Mafia Girl Boss. There's one that Good Shot have put out, and the twist is that the female lead is the mafia boss, and the love interest, he's the delivery guy, and she's protecting him. She's got all the things. People love that one. That was fantastic. There's another one, I think it's called Cheer Clean Slay or something, where the love interest is really secondary. It's very much about the relationship between a mother and a daughter. And the mother kind of ends up as younger and going into a cheer squad to look after her daughter. But the key thing about that is them building their relationship, and they're both becoming stronger, more understanding people. So it's kind of one area is getting a lot worse, but then there's also more stories coming through which are much more female-centric and have empowered leads. So I think it's both. It's sort of diverging in both directions.
Hi, I'm Isabel Dreon, and I'm a screenwriter.
Do you think short drama have created more opportunities for female creators?
Oh, absolutely. Because again, when the salaries are not as high, sometimes, men don't want to put the effort. And so these positions usually attract women, and once you get produced, that's the key, right? As a writer is to get produced. It changes everything if you're produced. So verticals happen, the production cycle is very short. Like, for example, romance and holiday movies the cycle is 1 year from the green light to the release, which is very fast in this industry. And verticals have now taken that 1 year cycle to 3-month cycle. So you can actually get produced in 3 months, which is an incredible opportunity for women to break in. And of course, the audience is women. Romance tend to attract women writers. So yes, absolutely more opportunities for women. Most of my incubator is out of 12 writers, 11 women, 1 guy usually. So definitely. The same with holiday movies, romance movies is the same. 90% women, 10% men.
If a writer wants to write short dramas, what's your best suggestion?
And to take my incubator to learn, because a lot of people don't think they know, they understand, but when you actually read the samples, they don't. But watch them, study them, write the first 10 episodes and have other writers look at, maybe people that are in this world, the vertical space, give you feedback. I also have a networking group on WhatsApp for verticals. So we are almost 200 people in there now. And some people have joined, like between directors and writers, and created, proof of concept. I think if you're a writer and you want to get into it, match with the director and shoot, the first 10 and show you what you can do. I have one of my writers who did that, and she's working right now.
My name is Jen Urokis, and I work as a director in microdrama or vertical drama.
From your observation, do you think the way female leads are portrayed in short dramas has any issues or areas for improvement?
Yeah, I think that takes us back to the conversation about misogyny and sexism. I mean, I do think that a way to execute a romance story without the women being a victim, or without the woman's happiness being solely dependent on the success of the romance that's in question. I shot one where our lead female character was actually the more dominant, more powerful person. And what was great about her character is that you got the sense that she didn't need the man at the end, that she wanted him, that it wasn't about needing him, but it was about wanting him. And that to me is, I think we could look to make more of the scripts lean in that direction, rather than the woman being victimized.
If you were to create a female character for a vertical drama, what kind of woman will she be?
I'd love to see like a female character who's like imperfect and a little klutzy, most of the characters that I've seen, they're just so polished, or they're like, Cinderella, where, she's, really beaten down and poor or whatever. And it could be fun to a female character who is, financially stable, but maybe awkward, and, maybe part of her growth into herself is navigating through that awkwardness or that klutziness. There's some sort of, she's not perfect, but she's also not desperate.
I'm Kristen Brancaccio, and I have been directing vertical dramas since March of 2024.
Is any female leads are portrayed in short drama have some issues for improvement?
Well, the American approach to a female lead tends to be she has to be really strong, and she has to know what she wants, and she has to go after what she wants. And that is very, I think, cultural. A lot of the verticals, it's the female lead is the opposite of that. And it's been interesting seeing audiences respond to that. I mean, they obviously are responding very positively. So in terms of watching these, right? But I do wonder if we're not reaching all the audience we could be if we also explored options where there is a really strong female. And that's, there are verticals where, the female lead is like super strong and she's out there, she's got a mission. So I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but overwhelmingly what I see is, the female lead is more deferential to the male lead. She's not the one making all the decisions, or, she's really letting him take charge. And I think I'm not knocking that, because I think there's like a fantasy in there for some viewers who are like, yeah, I really just wish someone would just solve all my problems for me. So I just want to watch a show where she just gets to go along for the ride, and someone else is, whoever was mean to her, the male lead beats them up. And, so I try not to bring any judgment to the different characters in these shows, but I do think American audiences tend to gravitate towards shows about a really strong woman, and this space so far is providing that in much smaller quantities. So I suspect we'll start seeing more offerings, because it's just what the audience gravitate towards here. I mean, I again, if we're using myself as like a gut check barometer for this audience, I prefer stories personally where, this woman is not perfect, but she's going after what she wants, and she's, maybe a strong career woman, or, maybe she's got goals that are, present her as like a very strong character.
You already mentioned there are some female leads or female characters are portrayed badly in short drama. If you were to create a female character for a short drama or a vertical, what kind of woman should she be?
Well, the women that I have created, they're smart, they're strong, they're educated, they don't need to be saved by a man, which all the women that I know are like, hell yes, yeah, we want to fight for those women that are doing those things, but they still want love. They still want a knight in shining armor because, everyone wants love, right? But yes, women that are strong, independent, but still soft and tender, and have layers to them. So, and I do think that viewers will want to watch that. And I think that it just takes time for apps to take a chance and for the viewers to evolve along with the genre.